Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Dustin Jackson.
And Dustin, it is...
Hello!
Yeah, hello! It
That's
is...
the best part.
Yeah.
Everything after I say that is just downhill. I don't care.
It is officially autumn, as we've discussed. And... you know what? Damn it, Dustin, I am in the autumn spirit. You know, like, I didn't used to ever get in the spirit of autumn because I used to view autumn as a season of death and decay.
Right. I mean, I get that.
I'm all about, like, the renewal of life, spring into summer. But in the past decade or so, I have gradually grown to appreciate all four seasons. I find the beauty within all of them, and I have really grown fond of fall. To use the colloquial term. Oh my goodness,
I'm so glad.
Yeah, and I realize it's only fall here in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're listening to us below the equator, happy spring. Spring's great too. I'm not going to talk about spring today though. I'm going to talk about fall because for me, like fall, it used to represent a lot of negative things, which I didn't realize as a kid tied into my anxiety. Like I suffer from, bipolar 2 anxiety, but I didn't realize that as a kid. I just thought I was like high strung, and fall
sad.
Brought with it, going back to school and all these social anxieties that would dredge up. Plus, the loss of your, freedom as a kid where you could just do whatever you want all day long.
Right. You got to go back to school, or as I like to call it, prison. Am I right?
I liked learning. I did enjoy that aspect, but I didn't like things like having to like get up in front of the class or getting, called on for, to answer a question and you're just put on the spot and just that peer dynamic. It just unnerved me, and I didn't put that together, but I would dread fall for that reason, even though I would very much like things like Halloween and, U.S. Thanksgiving, which would always tie into my birthday as well. And of course, my birthday eventually would signal the arrival of the latest, hottest Donkey Kong game from the mid to late 90s. So, I would have good aspects of fall, but I would never really welcome the arrival of autumn. But I like it now. I like cider. I like, the crisp autumn air. I like all of the woodland rodents scurrying around, gathering their nuts. I just love that.
You're telling me.
So we are celebrating autumn here on the Kongversation, and we're going to be doing that by once again breaking out our travel books. Destination DKU. We are talking about the second world of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze today, Autumn Heights. And if you're not familiar with the Destination DKU format, what we do here is this isn't like, here's how to find all the Kong letters in Autumn Heights. No, that's
yeah, this ain't a walkthrough.
No, that's nonsense. You can read GameFAQs or Mario Wiki or watch a walkthrough on YouTube or Twitch if you want to do that. What we're doing is looking at Autumn Heights from an in-universe perspective. We're looking at it as it exists within the world of the DKU, the Rare Archipelago, and we're trying to suss out what we can learn from environmental and contextual clues that Retro Studios provided us. So we did this for Juicy Jungle last season, Dustin.
Right.
And that was a fun episode. We've also done...
that was great. I have a question for you about that episode, actually.
Yeah.
Do you remember if I said that was my favorite world or not in that episode?
I tend to tune you out after you say hello, so...
It is all downhill after that.
Right.
I just feel I'm going to feel like a real jackass if I say this one's my favorite world.
It's okay to have fluctuating opinions. This isn't like the 2004 presidential election. Nobody's going to accuse you of being a flip-flopper.
Ooh, topical.
I know, right? Remember that when being the worst thing was being a flip-flopper? Don't be a flip-flopper, Dustin. You said this one thing and you changed your mind? You're a flip-flopper.
I threw my flip-flops in the trash. I didn't want to be associated with that.
So, it's okay if you've changed your mind, Dustin. It's okay.
I feel like depending on what day I'm asked, it'll be either Autumn Heights or Juicy Jungle, and maybe it's just because it's what we're talking about today, but I'm gonna say Autumn Heights is my number one favorite tropical freeze world. It's just gorgeous. That's
fair. That's fair, Dustin. I think for me, when I'm feeling juicier, I gravitate towards Juicy Jungle. When I'm feeling a little bit more dry, it'd probably be Autumn Heights.
That, you know what? That makes sense. I feel like that adds up.
So we also did the Congo Jungle episode for Destination DKU earlier this season, and last October we did Witchy World. So
we got a lot of these.
Oh yeah, this is our fourth one. And we're
how many more locations does this DKU have?
Oh, unfortunately, we could probably fill multiple seasons just doing these. I say unfortunately, but why is it unfortunate that we have a wealth of content? People look at the Kongversation and they say, how is it possible that a Donkey Kong podcast has been going 11 years and is still finding content to talk about? And well,
yeah, I find myself pretty, I would consider myself pretty familiar with the DKU, and even I ask that sometimes.
I've got magic fingers, Dustin, and I'm able to massage the topics.
That's true. Your fingers are my favorite part of you.
So, if you like the fact that the Kongversation never knows when to shut up about about games where, we haven't had a new mainline Donkey Kong entry in almost 10 years. There hasn't been a new Banjo-Kazooie game in 15 years. If you find it stupendous that we're able to keep going like this, consider backing us on Patreon. DKVine,
yes, please.
DKVine.com/Patreon. It's how DKVine keeps running. It's through the generous support of you, our listeners. And, I have been pushing this, I guess goal of if I can hit $2,000 a month on the Patreon, I can do DK Vine full time. And that is still the goal, Dustin. However, I have some exciting news that I'm not going to share on this episode. I'm going to be revealing it soon, but it's great news for DK Vine. It's great news for me. Good things ahead in DK Vine's future, which will mean more content than ever before. I'm not quite ready to announce it yet, but, please, if you like DK Vine, if you like the Kongversation, just think about, throwing a couple bucks our way a month on Patreon, because it really is the difference between, DK Vine shutting down and thriving. So, thank you.
Yeah, I know you guys have been eyeing those new slacks at the store,
right,
but maybe put those off a little bit. You don't need them right away. Throw those bones our way.
Right. Yeah. Eventually, maybe we'll sell slacks on our merchandise store and you could just get them there.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because we are on TeePublic, Dustin. And you can find us dkvine.com/merchandise or just searching us on TeePublic. We've got a new shirt for October, Dustin. How exciting is this? It is the World One Tourism shirt, which evokes the national park posters of the United States Forest Service. And it applies that to Lake Orangatanga from off of Donkey Kong Country 3. And you can get it on a t-shirt, but you can also get it as our first wall print, our first poster.
Ooh.
You can hang this on your wall and say, oh yeah, I played a game with a monkey in it.
Yeah, Hyle, you know I famously am not a fan of this whole DKU shit, but I love Lake Orangutanga.
Yeah.
That you made this with me in mind, and I just know everyone else is gonna love it as well. No, it's gorgeous. I love it.
I'm proud of this one because, you know, my design skills are zero, but, I feel like I've gotten better since our t-shirt store opened. Cause, at first we had stuff like the grapes shirt, which, I'm still proud of, by the way. I still think that's, just high elegance as far as the fashion world goes. But there's a wide gulf between those early shirts and what we have now. And so World One Tourism, you can get it as a shirt, you can get it as wall art, you can get it at dkvine.com/merchandise. Check it out.
Check it out, man.
Yeah. So, Dustin.
Yeah, Hyle. Do you got something on your mind?
A few things pertaining to Donkey Kong. Yeah. I know, like, what have I doing thinking about Donkey Kong when Mortal Kombat 1 is out? But I actually would like to talk about Mortal Kombat 1 just because I find the continuity of that series fascinating. They've like rebooted it twice now, but they're like in-universe reboots that still like honor what happened before. And, it's wild. It's just like, if I was an obsessive about Mortal Kombat, I would have a lot to say about that. But,
that sounds off the hook.
Yeah. Let's talk about a series that has an unbroken streak of continuity. No soft reboots here. The Donkey Kong series has done a remarkable job, I feel, at making sure that the feel of the series, the tonal theming does not remain stagnant. Even back in the mid-1990s, when we were getting 2 games a year. Do you remember that, Dustin? Do you remember when we would get
how could I forget
2 Donkey Kong games a year? And we were just like, this is it?
I felt like one of those rich fat kids who was like, I only get 2 Donkey Kong games?
Yeah, and I still wanted more. Back in the mid-1990s, it felt like each subsequent iteration felt new and different enough from what had come the previous year. Even when they were running on the exact same game engine on the same platform. We got 3 Donkey Kong Country games from 1994 to 1996, all on the same console, all running on the same engine. But they felt vastly different from each other. And part of that, I feel like, begrudgingly maybe more in the modern era, but back then, switching up the characters and cast definitely helped. But I would also argue that making sure the series really broadened its horizons in its setting went a long way towards keeping Donkey Kong not just fresh, but something that could be more universal than what you would think would be the inherent limits of what you could do with a series starring intelligent apes and monkeys.
Right.
Like, a lot of people associate the Donkey Kong series with jungles. I mean, of course they do. It's the natural.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It's the natural habitat of gorillas and orangutans and monkeys, and so it makes sense. But the series doesn't have to just be set in jungles, and you don't need to base every game around that jungle setting. And of course, there have been jungle levels and worlds in every mainline Donkey Kong game since 1994. But it's usually only the first game in a sub-series or a special occasion in which the jungles are presented as the main archetype in which the game is themed around. Those images that appear on the box art and in the promotion for the game, what your mind goes back to when you recall that game. So, Donkey Kong Country, the original, Donkey Kong Land, Donkey Kong 64, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, Donkey Kong Country Returns, they all have that jungle setting as the primary archetype, and it's what you think about when you think about those games.
Right.
But for direct sequels, when we're lucky enough to have a direct sequel, the series sort of shunts jungles too deeper into the ecosystem of the game itself, and they instead focus on a different environment to give the game its base identity, and kind of theme it around in all of the promotion. So, of course, Donkey Kong Country 2 and Donkey Kong Land 2 had pirate ships and this sort of high seas nautical swashbuckling adventure as its base identity.
Right.
Donkey Kong Country 3 and Donkey Kong Land 3 did something different in that it went to a more temperate lake country for its setting. And of course, Tropical Freeze would then have like the mangroves as kind of like the stock theme based off its first world, Lost Mangroves, as sort of everything the promotion was based around. But I bring all of this up. This isn't just a weird Hyle tangent. This actually serves a purpose, set up our discussion tonight. I bring this up because Donkey Kong, will generally default to jungles whenever the series gets a fresh start or new beginning, as well as representing the series in crossovers and cameo games like Mario titles or Super Smash Brothers. It's usually a jungle that you see if Donkey Kong has to have any home field representation. And that's all well and good. But I think for hardcore fans of Donkey Kong, the ravenous Donkey Kong fans, of which we are included, the other archetypes are just as important to the identity of the series. And the way our memories default to thinking about those, when recalling the sequels. And we often want to return to those vibes, I guess, that the sequels really celebrated, and the sort of like soft restarts of Donkey Kong never really do. Donkey Kong Country Returns kind of went back to the pirate aesthetic here or there, with like Worlds 2 and 3 in the game. You would have like cool levels like Stormy Shore or Mass Blast, and it didn't really like hit the same levels, the same dopamine hit that maybe Main Brace Mayhem did in DKC 2, but it was still cool because it was like, it's a Donkey Kong game celebrating pirate themes, high sea themes.
Yeah.
Like that's cool. I like that. And
yeah, same.
Yeah. But sometimes the stars will align just perfectly, and we'll get a Donkey Kong experience that feels like a bigger budget version of the past. And I would say, Retro Studios arguably achieved that with the second world of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, when they hit upon a lot of the same atmospheric feelings of Donkey Kong Country 3's Northern Hemisphere, as much as you could get without returning to the Northern Hemisphere. And
right, evoking it.
Evoking it, right. Evoking the same kind of feelings that Rare really played up in DKC 3. It didn't hurt that Dixie Kong made her playable return in Tropical Freeze, and either deliberately or through just the luck of level design, felt like she was the partner Kong who felt most prominent in the second world of Tropical Freeze. So you had a whole lot of Dixie in play, and you had a lot of environments that felt like they could have been lost levels from Donkey Kong Country 3.
Right. A lot of verticality in these levels, too.
And when we look at the love for this world, so many people adore this world. When I announced this episode, I knew it was popular, but I didn't realize how passionate so many people felt about it. And I do think it does tie into evoking, Donkey Kong Country 3, which unfortunately is the entry that is most often ignored by, mainstream video game discussion. It's hugely celebrated within the, like I said, the hardcore Donkey Kong fandom here at DK Vine and elsewhere, but you go outside of our comfy, cozy walls, and you're really not going to get a lot of people celebrating it. So it was really great to see sort of a return to this, just like Returns kind of tipped its hat to DKC2. I feel like Tropical Freeze did the same with DKC3. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Autumn Heights.
Oh man, there's nothing I would love more.
Autumn Heights, just like all of the Tropical Freeze worlds, it is an island unto itself in the Rare Archipelago, part of the chain of islands north of Donkey Kong Island that includes Lost Mangroves to its north and Bright Savannah, Seabreeze Cove, and Juicy Jungle to its south. So, as we mentioned, it's got a temperate climate. And it is extremely mountainous, hence the verticality that you just referred to. It's got like forest dotting the like more plateaued like areas of it where there isn't just like sprawling mountains and cliffs. And the Northern Hemisphere from DKC 3 and Donkey Kong Land 3, it has some overt, I guess, Bavarian and Swiss influences to it, like Central Europe, the Alps, that whole region of Europe.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Northern Hemisphere specifically was kind of a Rorschach test, like an ink blot, in that people tended to just see their own frame of references in the Northern Hemisphere. The amount of people who claim that Donkey Kong Country 3 is the Canadian one, it's legion. I mean, there's so many people who say, oh, Donkey Kong Country 3 is based on Canada, right? Or the Pacific Northwest of the United States. And I see more like Germanic, Swiss Alps kind of vibes to it. Especially with characters like, Benny and Bjorn and, some other things. But, I guess it's nebulous enough. It's kind of vague here or there that, if you are familiar with any sort of temperate pine forest, you will like see it in DKC 3. But right. Autumn Heights definitely takes a page out of the whole Oktoberfest vibe. Like I don't think it's not ambiguous at all. They were really going for Central Europe here.
Yeah, definitely. It's not as ambiguous as DKC3 can be.
Yeah, it's great because you've got beer steins just like littering the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a joke. Like, you ground pound the ground and you can open up the beer steins and get items out of them.
And coins come out.
Yeah, coins or bananas. And I'm just like, wow, bunch of drunks.
You're using these wrong.
Yeah, right. Well, I imagine like just like the amount of people just going around drinking their beer out of the steins and then they drunkenly leave their steins and then, I don't know, bananas fall in because it's the Rare Archipelago and you're
right.
You can't walk 5 feet without kicking a banana. So they're just gonna, get in your mugs. And anyway, but yeah, this is definitely a European flavored island in the Rare Archipelago. And we do have, European flavors across the Rare Archipelago, mostly owing to the fact that Rare, is in the UK and they would just draw from their own experiences. But my question is, this is so familiar to the Northern Hemisphere that, figuring out how the Rare Archipelago is officially laid out is a bit of a fool's errand. We've had, different fan interpretations, including our own Cameron, who did his Rare Archipelago map. But, there's no firm and fast, rule how this stuff is mapped out, except from what we can gather from what the games show us. So we know where Crocodile Isle is or was relative to Donkey Kong Island. We know where the Tropical Freeze Islands are sort of relative to Donkey Kong Island. And then everything else is just contextual and logic and just trying to fill in the gaps. I would say Conker, the Willow Woods, Panther Kingdom Island is probably one of the most northernly islands in the Rare Archipelago.
I'll agree with that. I mean, I have no evidence to the contrary. You could tell me it's located anywhere,
and I would
believe you.
I would say the faraway lands, the setting of Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, are in the southern hemisphere and maybe are the most southerly islands in the Rare Archipelago, just based off things.
Oh, go ahead.
Just based off things like the penguins you see in the background and the fact that, they are far away. So how far away are they? Well, to the south. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's all just, conjecture for the most part.
See, so you'd say, the faraway lands are the exact opposite of Willow Woods.
Well, I mean, technically...
They're on opposite sides of the coin.
Technically, the Rare Archipelago, however you want to define it, could go even further north if you include the North Seas that the Snowmads are from, so...
Oh, that's true, that's true.
And of course, it might extend, further, west, where, eventually going into the entrance to the Sea of Thieves, which is in the Caribbean, so, I don't know, but... The question, though, is what is the relation between Autumn Heights and the Northern Hemisphere? Because they seem like they're linked, at least in, their, ecosystem, their, climate. They seem very similar. So are they neighbors? Are they close to each other? Is it adjacent to the Northern Hemisphere? And I like to think so. But there's no in-game evidence to support that, but it just makes sense to me that these would be at least the same, latitude, longitude, whatever it is. The parallel to each other. Now,
right, they have similar vibes.
Similar vibes, similar climate, and I could just see them being, different political environments, maybe, I don't know if Autumn Heights is run by bears, but...
Oh, yeah, that's true. I don't think we see any bears in Autumn Heights, do we?
We don't see any bears whatsoever in Autumn Heights. But I like to think there could be bears that reside there. Why not? I mean, why wouldn't a bear family or two say, I'm going to strike out in Autumn Heights. I'm leaving the Northern Hemisphere. I'm moving to Autumn Heights. We never see any.
Yeah, I mean, look at all these houses that they have. They got to have some people living there.
There is a robust civilization in Autumn Heights, and we never really get a good idea of who is actually residing in them. I mean, there are a bunch of owl houses the further up the island you get, but I'm
right, but down here on the ground floor.
Yeah, like near the coast of Autumn Heights, specifically the Windmill Hills. You basically you're strolling through a town. It's one of the very few towns in a Donkey Kong game we ever see. And so I like to think there could be bears residing there. Why not? It makes sense, especially not even getting into broader DKU lore, just within the Donkey Kong Country series. We know there are anthropomorphic bears that live in cabins. So why can't there be bears living here? And, I just think it makes sense when logically inserting it in with the rest of the series and the DKU that, there could be bears here. It's just not part of the same Northern Hemisphere political ecosystem. So own independent.
You know
island.
what, Hyle? You convinced me. I think there's at least a bear living here.
At least one. And that brings me comfort. Whenever there's a bear, just one, I feel a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm just worried I'll wake up one day and see an open house sign in front of it.
In the live stream, Freezer asked, is it related to the towns from Impossible Lair? You get a little bit of that. Impossible Lair, the Royal Stingdom, which is the setting, the grand tome setting of Yooka-Laylee and Impossible Lair. It does remind me a little bit of Windmill Hills in particular, just because it's got that European vibe to it. But, that's a bunch of bees that live there.
Yeah, bees and bears are different.
Bees that are, I mean, it's a convoluted story, Yooka-Laylee and Impossible Lair, and I don't really want to get into spoilers here if you've had, if you've seen like all the endings to Impossible Lair, but there's some heady stuff going on there, and that being said, I think, I don't think there are any bears living in a royal Stingdom because they would have to be written into the Grand Tome itself. And, I don't think that was done. So we do know
it would be madness. It would be absolute malarkey.
Yeah, because if bears are living next to bees, they're just going to be getting that honey.
That's how wars are started.
That's just the breakdown of civilization occurs right then and there. So we do actually know, though, of some indigenous wildlife on Autumn Heights, and this is thanks to the way Retro broke down these worlds in Tropical Freeze. There would, of course, be the Snowmad army that's moved into all of these islands, but then you get, within each ecosystem, unique baddies that have been integrated into the Snowmad army, similar to how the Kremling crew would also incorporate species other than Kremlings, like Naughties and Armies and Slippas and
right.
Meeks.
I always like that. I like seeing like they're not all alligators. I like whenever you get a little variety in there.
Alligators?
Kremlings.
Crocodiles is
what I meant to say.
Well, yes, but Kremlings are crocodilian, not I mean, I know
right,
alligators.
But I think what I said is still accurate, though. It's not all alligators. In fact, it's no alligators at all.
You're getting me on the damn technicalities, Dustin. You always do.
I win.
So yeah, there is, wildlife that has kind of been brought in to the Snowmad ranks. And you know, we've discussed this before with the Snowmads. Do they like come into this environment and then do they like then train the wildlife, like certain representatives of the wildlife? Do they like capture them and then train them to serve their purposes? Because, you know, in Lost Mangroves, we see some of the like dodos in the background who aren't part of the Snowmad army. Like we see wildlife that is representative of just the still wild wildlife that hasn't been brought into the Snowmad ranks. So, you know, it raises... Right,
they are trying to hurt the Kongs, but they have no allegiance with the Snowmads.
Or, like, I'm talking about the background ones that don't attack the Kongs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, it's possible, and I like to think, like, just starting us off here, we got cheesy chesters, which are the rats with, I know Jeff hates Retro's naming conventions for the baddies in Tropical Freeze, like Monocle Monica, and like he despises this. And,
hey there, everybody, I'm Cheesy Chester.
Cheesy Chester, yeah, which sounds like some sort of like indie game knockoff of Five Nights at Freddy's, which is a knockoff of Chuck E. Cheese, like Cheesy Chester.
Cheesy Chester's where I had my 5th birthday party.
So Cheesy Chester, they're the like disease-looking rats.
Rude, but accurate.
They're hideous. They're hideous rats, which so like the question is, how much intelligence do these creatures possess? Because when we first enter Autumn Heights, you know, the camera does the whole like swooping in, like, and you see like the different like wildlife, like getting into stuff. This little like slice of life before the Kongs enter the scene. And we see like the Cheesy Chesters like standing upright. I think we see one chopping wood, and so it raises the question, are these like fully anthropomorphic rats? Or if you really want to get into the weeds of this logic, have the snowmads train some to stand upright and chop wood and do other things. Cheesy Chesters are interesting conundrum because later on in Autumn Heights, we get a little bit more insight into their inner world, so to speak. And
yeah, they got all that cheese.
Right. And so it raises the question of like, how much of this existed before the snowmads came in, and how much of it is their doing and their teachings and their trainings? Because here's the thing about rats standing upright, Dustin, that always squicks me out. It reminds me of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle origins, where Splinter is the one who as a pet rat learned karate or like learned the martial arts.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? I don't know how much of a Ninja Turtles guy you are.
I'm familiar with, I wouldn't consider myself like a super fan, but I know about TMNT.
Yeah, so there are like alternating origins for Splinter. In some of them, he is the pet rat of Hamato Yoshi, who was this martial artist who I think he was part of the Foot Clan, and then he was exiled by Shredder, and then in other origins, he is a rat that merged thanks to the mutagen with Hamato Yoshi, which explains why Splinter knows martial arts and has all of this wisdom. I've always preferred the latter because for me it's a bridge too far, even in the wacky world of Ninja Turtles, to have this pet rat that, you know, learned the martial arts and the ways of the ninja. And it's like, there's gotta be more to it than that. But so to see a rat chopping wood, and this is complicated within the broader DKU, because of course there are intelligent rats in the DKU. Like we just talked about Witchy World last year, and we've got, you know, characters like Jippo Jim or whatever, who walk around carrying mallets, right? And
right.
So we have, you know, sentient rats in the DKU, but for Donkey Kong, it's always a weird divide, because in games like Donkey Kong 64, they just went full Banjo-Kazooie with it. But in Donkey Kong Country games, there has been this kind of divide between like the Kongs and the bears and like more wildlife, more just like actual wild animals. And
there's a more clear line in the sand between what animals can walk upright and wear clothes, and which ones are more animalistic.
Right. And so when I play a Donkey Kong Country game, that's not, you know, Donkey Kong 64 or Banjo-Kazooie or, you know, Diddy Kong Racing or whatever, I'm going to be thinking in those terms, I think. I think that's just the way my brain is primed to think of it. So it was like, okay, well, Kongs can, you know, speak and walk upright. And of course, the Snowmads throw that askew, because obviously they have, a greater degree of sentience than, just wild animals. Like, they're penguins and walruses and what have you, but they're obviously, they've got agency. So, I don't know why this is so hard for me to just accept that, the cheesy chesters are just a civilization unto themselves. And I have to, like, really get into...
You have to work out the logic.
Like, my brain is just like, well, wait a second. Like, maybe the snowmats taught them how to chop wood because the snowmats would need wood piles. And why would they swing that axe when they could just get a rat to do it? And then I'm like, Hyle, you're an idiot.
Well, I think about the rats from DKC 3. Sneaks, I believe.
Yeah.
In that, they really are just rats. They just kind of walk around, like, in the mill. Here, these ones are at least a little smarter than that, I think. They're chopping wood. They're holding bananas on sticks.
They're chopping the wood. They're hoarding the cheese.
Yeah, exactly. My first instinct is, I think they're just a smarter breed of rat. Like, I think they're not quite up there with anthropomorphic ones. Mm-hmm. Like, is Dilberta's a rat, right? In Banjo-Tooie?
Dustin, every time
do we have this discussion before?
I feel like we always, like, figure out what Dilberta is, and then we always forget it.
She's at least a step above these. She talks.
She's a mole, she's a rat, or I remember Steve Mail.
I want to say she's a rat.
Steve Mails got on my case for this the other year because I made a joke on social media, and Steve Mails was like, she's clearly blind, and I've already forgotten it. Steve Mails, I'm sorry, but when you have so many rodents in these games, I can't keep track, especially when you put a rodent in a miner hat, and I'm thinking, well, that's a mole, because moles wear miner hats, but
Well, yeah, Dilberta can't be a mole because Bottles is a mole, but anyway, back to these guys.
This is so complicated. This is all nonsense. This is all made up. None of this matters.
It's all pretend cartoons.
Oh my god, my life is a fraud.
Who cares about a rat chopping wood? No, but I love the cheesy chesters. I just like their designs. I like their weird eyes. I think on a list of DKU rats, I would put them above Sneaks. Sneaks never really did it for me.
I like how ugly Sneaks are. These are also ugly. Like, I'm not looking for a sexy rat. I'm not.
Well, let's not say anything we can't take back.
That's not my thing, but I would love if we could have a rat where you could be like, that's an objectively handsome rat.
Yeah, you know what? I would take this rat out to dinner and not be embarrassed.
I think what's weird for me about cheesy chesters is that they've got the coil in their tail. Like they've got the like the tail that's curled up into itself.
Right.
And then you've also got that same pattern in their earlobes.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so it's just like I'm looking at all like these dual spirals and I'm getting hypnotized by him. And I'm just looking into like the mouth of madness, and I'm just like, God, I hate them. but I like them too. I like that. Like, I hate them viscerally. I look at them and I'm like, go to hell. But I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
by
you're
them.
supposed to.
Yeah.
Like they're designed to be little shitheads.
They're little fuckers, is what they are.
Yeah. That's an even better word for it.
Yeah, they're everywhere in this world, I gotta say. But yeah, when we're entering Windmill Hills, and yeah, there's that one cheesy chester who's kind of like egging on the Schnauzel pig with like a banana on a stick. Yeah, like you mentioned that. I'm like, what are you doing?
What do you gain from this? You're a rat.
This is the logic I love. What if the snowmats train cheesy chesters to then train the schnauzels.
Oh, it's like a line of training.
Right. And then this is how the snowmats take over and accomplish so much is, they're so hands off, right? Like you get the rats on your side, then you get the pigs on your side.
Right. See, they're working smarter, not harder.
Right. Life hacking. So let's talk a little bit, Dustin, about the pigs, the boars, if you will, of Autumn Heights. Schnauzel. I can't even say their name. Schnauzel? Schnauzel?
This rules. This is a good podcast.
No, but it's a hard name to say if you're not a native speaker. Schnauzel.
Is it Schnauzel?
Schnauzel.
Okay.
We'll go. It's like
good
schnapps.
job.
It's like schnapps, the alcohol. My parents would also always drink schnapps. And, that would be their go-to booze of choice. They would drink peach schnapps.
Sounds delish.
I'm like, what the hell? Why am I related to you? The schnauzels are interesting, Dustin. They are the native boars. I guess they're boars. I mean, which a boar is a type of a pig, but they are native to Autumn Heights, but they also breathe fire from their nose.
Yeah. I mean, that's fun. I actually got really pissed off at these guys earlier. I was playing through the world just to refresh myself for the podcast. And boy, I can't even blame them. It was my fault. I kept getting hit by their fire. I was the one fucking up. They were doing their jobs.
Right. I mean, they breathe fire. That's just what they do. It's your job to stay away from their fire.
Yeah, I chose to stand in front of it, I guess.
What's interesting to me about Schnauzel is that this isn't the first instance of a fire-breathing pig in a Donkey Kong game.
Huh.
So Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, one of the primary baddies you encounter in that game are a class of pig or boar, and there's several throughout the game. But generally, I think the agreed upon English translation, because they didn't translate most of these baddies to English for the game. We didn't even get any names for them in any of the material released in the West. So the most, I think, agreed upon translation is hogs, for these, Jungle Beat pigs. HAWG. Hog.
That's fun, because it's kind of like hog, HOG, but it's like different.
It's a little bit more, rebellious. It's like, oh no.
A little more in your face.
Yeah.
These ain't your daddy's pigs.
A little bit more extreme. Yeah. Yeah. They defy authority. They stick it to the man.
Yeah. The pig of the 2000s.
So you've got several hogs in Jungle Beat. You've got gale hogs. They're the hogs that blow gust of, breath at you and blow you back. And then you've got fire hogs, which, the loose Japanese name is Fire Pig Popo, which is what, like, sites like Mario Wiki use. I am more about, more bluntly translating them into what I think the English would be, and I think it would be Fire Hog. So that's DK Vine's translation of this.
That also just rolls off the tongue nicer, too.
Fire Pig Popo, yeah. I wish, Mario Wiki would.
You think I got all day saying that name?
Mario Wiki, I mean, this is what they do. I'm not faulting them for this, but they have to be very literal with, what they name their articles, because if there is no direct English translation anywhere in any literature, they will just go with the Japanese, name and, you know, whatever would be the like, phonetic English of that. But for me, Fire Hog is just, a lot cleaner. And, I
always thought they looked like big koosh balls.
They do look like koosh balls, but this being the second major instance of fire-breathing pigs in the Donkey Kong series, not just the DKU, the Donkey Kong series, I like to think that schnauzels are, distant relations.
I could see that. I like that. I like that little connection there.
You know, maybe a long time ago, a fire hog got on a log, LAWG, and floated north, to, I don't know how that would work with like trade winds. Maybe they, boarded a cargo ship that went to Autumn Heights and, they got loose and they eventually evolved into, schnauzels. So.
You know what? I like that a lot. I like being able to see, Schnauzels, limbs, though.
Yeah, it's nice that they're not just enormous koosh balls. I think the, fire hogs and the gale hogs, they do have limbs, but they're so spindly, they're so tiny that it just looks like they're a big gluttonous ball of fat.
Right. They're very bushy.
Which is also evocative of the 2000s, cause yeah. Our president was
very bushy at the time.
Yeah, our president was very bushy back then. So, we brought this up with Juicy Jungle, Dustin, but the question is, are these creatures actually called Cheesy Chesters and Schnauzels, or is this what the Snowmads named them?
That's a good question. I mean, I have no reason to think they're not just called that. I have nothing else to go off of.
See, if they're brought into the Snowmad army, though, like, maybe this is just the Snowmad terminology. And this is something Jeff and I have also discussed, because when he goes on rants about Monocle Monica, I'm like, well, hold on. Hold on, Jeff. Maybe, like, that's not actually their species name. Maybe that's just the dumb name some, like, Tuck gave them. Maybe Lord Frederick is just an idiot. He was like, let's put a monocle on this bug and name it Monocle Monica.
That'll be great for marketing.
Yeah. So maybe the Snowmads just suck.
They're bad at coming up with names
that really
catch on with people.
Cheesy Chester and Schnautzel, especially Schnautzel, when I can say it properly, they're much better names. Like, I like them. I like them as names. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than Fire Pig Popo.
Yeah, take that, Mario Wiki. Jesus. So,
disclaimer, I love Mario Wiki.
I love Mario Wiki too. Friends of DK.
They're very good.
We're allied. So, my issues with calling it Fire Pig Popo, that's in no way an indictment towards Mario Wiki. I understand why Mario Wiki has to abide by, strict wiki terms.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's looking for the pig enemy from Jungle Beat, you want to call it what it's called. You don't want to call it some made-up name and then have no one be able to find it.
I mean, to be fair, they only call it that because they don't want to translate it further. If it's not, there's no direct English translation in any Western guide or whatever. And sometimes they use the Prima guides, for their sources, and they're full of all sorts of misinformation, but they've got to do it because it's got the Nintendo seal on it. I get it.
Right.
But, that's the nice thing about DK Vine is we can get a little bit looser. We can say yeah, but what if not?
What if it wasn't like that? Ever consider that?
What if we just, do what feels right, man?
That's what I like about you. You go by what you're feeling.
I go by my own code. I call them hogs, man. I call them hogs. So the only other major baddie in Autumn Heights that you could make and have a very zesty argument over whether or not they are indigenous. This is a bit weird. And this is a unique thing to Autumn Heights in particular. It's the hoots. The hoots. Now, this is a controversial debate because Tropical Freeze never established this one way or another. For those who don't know or don't remember, hoots are the owls in the Snowmad ranks. And they're one of the main, classes in the Snowmad ranks. They're not just, the native wildlife that the Snowmads may have trained and incorporated.
Right, they're like the high-ranking, aerial soldiers.
Yeah, they're part of the main group. They wear belts with the Snowmad insignia. They're found everywhere in Tropical Freeze. They're right there with Tux and Waldos and those stupid little lemmings, but the higher elevations of Autumn Heights have many hoots birdhouses, and the top of the mountain is carved into the image of an owl. So,
right.
The question then becomes, are hoots originally from Autumn Heights, and then they joined the Snowmads later on? Are they not, from the same area that the Snowmads are from? Or it's possible that Autumn Heights has always been sort of a way station for the Snowmads, even though they are, by definition, nomads. They are Vikings who don't necessarily settle down in any one place. We know they've got, little secret clubhouses, stashed out the Rare Archipelago, Secret Seclusion, the hidden world in Tropical Freeze. That is kind of a Snowmad encampment in the sky above Donkey Kong Island. And so, maybe Autumn Heights has been a little bit of a camp for the Snowmads when they're in the area. So, I don't really know, Dustin, because there's only so much conjecture we can wring out of Autumn Heights that I honestly
right, but I do like I like that you can, they give you enough for you to think about it. Who else would be living in these big birdhouses? We don't see anyone else, and I don't think it's too big a leap to think that they come from here. Maybe they just got talked into being on the wrong side. Maybe they lived a peaceful life here on Autumn Heights.
Yeah, and like I said, it's possible that the hoots are native to Autumn Heights, but were brought into the Snowmad fold long ago. And this is kind of a sort of a homecoming for them, an ancestral, we used to live here. I don't know. It's left ambiguous, but they clearly have some sort of connection, some sort of greater connection to Autumn Heights, even if this is the Snowmads, came in some time ago and built up all these bird houses or owl houses for them and had this little mountain layer at the top of the island, and maybe they left and now they're back and they're just making themselves at home again. I don't know, but yeah, this is the big question mark hanging over Autumn Heights is, what is the extent of the Snowmad influence here when the Snowmads aren't invading? And, it is a big deal that the Snowmads are coming back into, this neck of the woods of the Rare Archipelago. And, they have, of course, frozen Donkey Kong Island. They've taken it over. They're trying to make that, their permanent home, but they're also this invading force in all these other islands en route to Donkey Kong Island. And,
right, they don't want to just stop at DK Island.
Yeah.
There's so many other islands ripe for the picking too.
Or, maybe they're stationing their troops at these islands to, guard Donkey Kong Island so the Kongs can't take it back over. And the Kongs are this liberating force going from island to island, driving the snowmads out. But yeah,
right.
Autumn Heights is the one where there's a clear, deeper history, at least with the Hoots. And whether or not the snowmads, have always earmarked Autumn Heights as like something they have designs on, or it's just the ancestral home of the Hoots where they're originally from. That is unknown.
They're in cahoots with the Hoots.
That's a t-shirt right there. I'm in cahoots with the Hoots. That sucks.
That'll fly off the shelves.
Yeah, that nobody's gonna buy that, Dustin. and
back to the drawing board, I guess.
Checking in with Freezer as we're wont to do as of late here on the Kongversation. She says maybe they're from the same place as Snowmads, but this was a previous colony they settled on later just for owls.
I could see that. Like it had existed, but then the Snowmads stationed the owls there.
Yeah.
I'd buy that. Any of these explanations, I'd be fine with. I'm not picky.
It's whatever you prefer, really.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're ever going to explain any of this. So there were also going to be other baddies, or there were concepts designed for other baddies in Autumn Heights that we've seen from the concept art. And one of these baddies from the concept art did get into the game, but only as background characters. So they never attack the Kongs. They're just kind of grazing livestock that you see in the background, which I love details like this. Like, I'm glad these didn't get in the game as baddies because I think it enriches the world so much more when you've just got them as background elements.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same thing before you even said it. I think you get more out of the world with them not being bad guys. It just helps flesh it out a little more. I love it. I love seeing these little goats just around, just minding their own business.
Yeah, when I first played Tropical Freeze way back in 2014, I got so damn excited by seeing these goats in the background, Dustin. I took screenshot after screenshot. And I shared one with you. I think this was the first screenshot I took, Dustin, of, this is the Wii U version. This is me excitedly taking screenshots of the goats because I was like, oh my god, goats, Tropical Freeze.
This one, the one we're looking at right now?
Yes, the one I shared with you. And maybe I'll share this on social media later. But yeah, I was so giddy because I love this little... at the time, I didn't realize that they were designed to be baddies in the game and they were cut but they had the model still. And so they just put them in the background because I just love unnecessary detail like this.
Same. It just goes so far. It goes such a long way for just fleshing out these locations. I loved when I caught the one, in Windmill Hills, at the lift part where it goes down, and there's just a goat right at the top, just chewing grass right at the top of the lift. I was like, that's my favorite of the goats.
I really like these goat designs. I like that, they're chewing on straw or grass or a piece of hay or something. I don't know. They look like they're just grumpy ass motherfuckers.
Yeah. They don't want any part in this shit.
Yeah. And so having them in the background just grazing in the grass though, it does indicate to me some semblance of civilization. We talked about the town, but we've got livestock here. I don't think these are wild goats. I think they're part of a farm or something. So, in my headcanon at least, these are goats and the farmer is a bear. These are
like that thing we were saying.
These are a bear's goats.
And the how one bear and all as many goats.
Yeah,
That's true.
I've never seen a bear that has goats.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I have either.
But I really want to now. And so in my head canon, maybe this is even an unseen Brothers Bear. Maybe this is the 15th Brothers Bear, who's just a goat farmer. He loves goat milk. You want some goat cheese? Come to this bear in Autumn Heights.
He decided the Northern Hemisphere wasn't for him. Too many bears there. Come here and then just get a bunch of goats.
Have you ever imagined a bear milking a goat, Dustin?
A few times.
Just yanking on them goat teats?
Yeah, it was unrelated to this, though.
This
is my first time in terms of the DKU.
Filling up that metal, like, milk pan with the goat milk.
That's the life, huh?
That's, in Autumn Heights, things move a little bit slower. Including the goat teats.
You gotta savor it.
So the goats made it in the background, and thank God they did, because I adore the goats. There are 2 other baddies, though, that we see in the concept art. There's a weird one that's like a pile of hay, with like a rake in it, and above the hay are a swarm of bees.
Boy, both things in Conquer.
Yeah, it's evocative of Conquer more than anything, including the design of the bees. They just
yeah.
They just look like the king bee from Conquer. So I guess
they're like the swarm of little tickly bees.
Yeah, I guess at some point, if you like walk through like the hay, these bees would come out and chase the Kongs or something, similar to like the swarms of bees in so many other DKU games at this point. But Banjo-Kazooie, the beehives and
right.
And then there's also a skunk that we didn't get.
What up, skunk?
Yeah, I
He looks scared. He's like shaking.
He looks mangy. Like he looks like he's got some sort of like skin disease.
Oh, poor guy. I like his mohawk though.
Yeah. I do like to think though that the concept art in Tropical Freeze is semi-canonical, just as far as stuff like talking about Juicy Jungle, that, the Chops are the ones, running the, juice factory. So I don't think it's out of the realm of plausibility to say that there are skunks indigenous to Autumn Heights. We just never see them.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
So, just
there's nothing in game saying skunks can't live here.
So just keep that in mind, people, when you're playing the second world in Tropical Freeze, that, but behind that tree, there's a skunk. You just can't see him, but he's there. Don't worry.
Freezer in the chat says, Retro would call the skunk something like Stinky Sam.
Yeah.
Love it.
Like, P.U. Peter.
P.U. Peter. That sucks.
I know. I was trying to think of a worse one than what Freezer gave us. Just something, bottom of the barrel. I hate everything about this. And that's what I came up with.
Oh, man. I think I get where Jeff's coming from now with these names.
Interestingly, there's another piece of concept art that you can unlock, beyond just like the baddie, role. And it's kind of a water wheel. And it's full of beavers. Dustin, beavers. And when people first saw this piece of concept art, the question was, are these supposed to be naughties? Of course, the world famous Donkey Kong beaver. Sorry, I'm 8 years old. The world famous Donkey Kong beaver, Naughty. Everybody knows of Naughties because they were, the first baddie you see in Donkey Kong Country. And
I'm really surprised they didn't stick around as the series went on.
Well, it's partially because the obsessive need to reinvent post Rare. You know, the Jungle Bee team didn't want to reuse any existing character, and then Retro felt the need to only bring back what was deemed the most essential. But you know, and naughties are heavily associated with the Kremlin crew. It would be a bit weird to like bring them in and not have any Kremlin involvement. So it's probably for the best that they just cut these completely, because if they were beavers who weren't naughties, we would complain about it. And if they were naughties, we would probably complain less, but there would still be questions being raised. So
I'd like it personally. I like the idea of like, oh, this is where, because it doesn't really make sense having naughties just be in the DK jungle. So I like the idea that they came from here in a location that might suit them better. You do see beaver dams in the stages.
Yeah.
Like, I think one stage in particular, there's a part where there's like a beaver dam, and I think the implication is, beavers are like chomping down the platform you're on. So you gotta get the floating bananas fast. So, you know, I'd be cool with that explanation. Like, you ever wonder where naughties come from? Well, guess what?
I think for me, like, the thing is, I just always assume naughties are from Crocodile Isle. Like, they're indigenous wildlife for Crocodile Isle the Kremlins, like, bring over. And that might not be the case, or Rare might have never, you know, thought about it in any, like, deep terms, but
I would agree with you if we saw any in DKC2 when we went to Crocodile Isle.
Crocodile Isle's a big place, Dustin.
Right, but you'd think we'd see a naughty here or there. We see like 10 million on DK Island.
Okay, but we know skunks are in Autumn Heights, but we never see them.
That's true. You just said earlier.
I got you there.
I guess I gotta. You win.
I think the problem with bringing in beavers, be they naughties or no, is that there was this weird aspect of tropical freeze where they brought in like porcupine fish or puffer fish in Seabreeze Cove. They named them Puffed Up. But they didn't spell Puffed Up the same way as the pufferfish Puffed Up from Donkey Kong Country 2.
Oh.
And Donkey Kong Land 2 and Donkey Kong 64. Cause that Puffed Up, the Kremlin crew affiliated Puffed Up, is spelled with one F. Whereas the Tropical Freeze Puffed Up is spelled with two Fs. And so the question then becomes, Retro, were you deliberately referencing the Puffed Up from the prior games, or did you try to come up with a new pufferfish enemy, forgetting about the previous pufferfish enemy, and you happen to name them almost the exact same thing, but different? And if that's the case, like, what?
They did it on purpose. They knew it would break DK Vine.
Well, I've rationalized it, Dustin, as I do. I'm the unofficial continuity massager of the DKU. And my logic is that the Puffed Ups with two Fs from Seabreeze Cove from Tropical Freeze are related to the Puffed Ups with one F from Crocodile Isle, but the Puffed Ups with one F from Crocodile Isle are an evolved form of the Puffed Ups with two Fs from Seabreeze Cove, because they are the Puffed Ups that were evolved from the Kremlin source energies deep beneath Crocodile Isle, which evolved the Kremlins from crocodiles into crocodilian humanoids. Well, just like the Kremlin source did to them, it evolved all these animals that are part of the Kremlin crew. So what's the difference between a beaver and a naughty? Well, a naughty is a beaver that was evolved by the Kremlin source. What's the difference between a Puffed Up with two Fs and a Puffed Up with one F? Well, a Puffed Up with one F was a Puffed Up with two Fs who was evolved from the Kremlin source. Dustin.
Yeah, they evolved past the need for two Fs.
Right.
They look down on the ones with two Fs. They're like, still using that extra F.
Well,
huh?
like the big evolutionary kink of the Puffed Up with one F is they can explode themselves.
That's so cool and advanced.
So,
die.
Don't worry, I figured it out. But it also is just annoying at the same time that I have to figure it out. Because it makes Donkey Kong continuity look clumsy to the outside observer. And it's like, yeah, DK Vine's got it all sorted and we make it all work. But, people don't trust us. People take my opinions, my fanon, and they say, you're just a mad person. You're just, stay away from me. Like they cross the street. They get to the other side of the street when I start talking about puffed ups. And I'm just like, I thought you looked lost and I thought I would explain to you the difference between puffed up and puffed up.
I thought I was doing you a favor.
Anyway, yeah, so I'm glad there are no beavers in this game. Now, because they would probably call them naughties, but spell it differently, like naughty, spell it like naughty, like you're a naughty little beaver.
You're just a naughty little thing.
Yeah, rather than spelling it naughty like the pun, like, oh, you're gnawing on things, hence you're a naughty.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad we didn't get these hypothetical beavers. Could you imagine the world we would live in?
Now the thing is, if all concept art in the retro games is at least soft canon, then there perhaps are beavers in Autumn Heights, but they might not be naughties. They might just be regular ass beavers.
It's true, you've presented the evidence, and I have no choice but to be on your side.
Maybe these are the base beavers that were evolved by the Kremling swords and became naughties. But you know what? We don't even need to have this discussion because we all see them in the game.
We all know.
Yeah. Whew! Alright, well now that we put that
What happened there? That was a whole thing.
I get very passionate about Retro's, alleged continuity mishaps. And I'm like, don't worry, Retro, I got your back.
No need to thank me.
Yeah, don't worry. People can still enjoy Tropical Freeze, even though you have a puffed up. That's a different puffed up from the puffed ups we know. Don't worry.
It's all thanks to Hyle.
When Tropical Freeze came out and there was that backlash that it wasn't a Metroid game, that was primarily centered on the fact that there was a puffed up that wasn't the puffed up that we knew. People were angry about it.
Once you rationalized it.
Yeah.
Once you rationalized it, by the time the Switch port came out, then people were like, I guess we can live with this now.
I guess this is one of the greatest platformers of all time.
I get now that that's been cleared up by Hyle Russell.
So let's talk about some of the levels in Autumn Heights, Dustin, because
I'd be delighted.
This is, I think, one of the strongest string of levels in Tropical Freeze. Like, Tropical Freeze has a lot of great levels, but I would say Autumn Heights and Juicy Jungle, there's this great progression in both of them, where it's almost telling an environmental story. With Juicy Jungle, we see the progression of the factory and the different, like, what they're producing in different parts of the factory, from the, like, harvesting of the fruits to the making of the ice lollies. Whereas in Autumn Heights, it's more blunt. It's just, you're starting from the base of the island and you're scaling upwards to the highest elevation. But I still like that kind of environmental storytelling. I still like, to see like the subtle differences in the levels from beginning of the world to end of the world, and just how the perspective changes, how the feeling of the world changes the further you get.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I would say that, like, as much as I like, parts of Bright Savannah and Seabreeze Cove, like Bright Savannah, there's kind of a steep drop off after the first few levels there. It just kind of meanders after that a little bit. And, Seabreeze Cove is just got, the water levels are just kind of, there's neat bits in there, but honestly, the air meter is kind of a deal breaker for me a little bit in Tropical Freeze.
I get you. I can get where you're coming from. I like those levels myself, like that one with all the neon in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, one of my favorites.
Like, I think like, each level works as a piece unto itself, but just sequentially, it just starts to, like, wear down on you. And it was kind of a problem some of the retro Donkey Kong Country games had, where it's just like, oh, the cave world in Donkey Kong Country Returns, it's just all minecarts and rocket barrels, and it's just too much. It's too much of one thing.
Not enough visual variety.
Not enough visual variety or gameplay variety, but Autumn Heights is just terrific. You get a nice cross-section of different things to do. And that includes
each level looks different.
And there's like there's straight like left to right side scrolling. There's the vertical stages. There's minecarts. There's a rocket barrel. There's one centered around Rambi. It's just a nice package. If I was to like make anybody who didn't play Donkey Kong games sit down and play a world from Tropical Freeze, I think Autumn Heights might be my choice.
That's a good pick. I think I would agree.
So Windmill Hills, we've talked quite a bit about Windmill Hills already because it is kind of the Bavarian town that sits at the base of Autumn Heights, the close to the shore, I guess, but it's already like rolling hills and just a lot of lovely imagery. Like, this is where I would want to hang out. Like, this is where...
Yeah, I love this stage.
I would get a soft pretzel here, because I imagine you can get soft pretzels here. This looks like the kind of place you can find soft pretzels.
That's what the level's most known for, is its soft pretzels.
You also get a lot of windmills here, which is interesting because the windmills, you kind of have a little bit of an owl motif even with the windmills. There's kind of like a feathery look to the roofs.
Yeah, I love that. That was one of the things that stood out to me when I was playing them this morning. I just love how all this architecture looks.
Yeah, it's very unique and you know, windmills I associate most with Conker. Just
right,
I mean, just because obviously there's a windmill that was one of the central locales in Bad Fur Day, but also Pocket Tales. It's just
right.
And then, you know, there are windmills in Diddy
Even
Kong.
stuff like 12 Tales.
Yeah, like windmills were always involved with the iconography of Conker. But, you know, Diddy Kong Racing also had windmills, in Dragon Forest. So, to see a windmill that looks visually distinct, it's not something you see often. And so I really applaud their art direction here. I also,
totally.
And like we talked about the goats on the, like, grazing on the hills in the background, but I also like the little, like, owl statues that you see just, like, very subtly in the, like, backgrounds. You might not even, like, realize they're owl statues at first, but it just this idea that there is this, like, historical presence of owls, whether or not this was, like, owl civilization, or maybe the residents of Autumn Heights even, like, revered the owls. Like, I don't know, not worship them, but, you know, like, definitely, held them to a, some sort of, like, ideal, like, oh, these are the noble creatures of the trees. I don't know. I've never built an owl statue, Dustin. I've never felt the urge.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. I'll let you know if I do, though.
You're gonna wake up, like, you're gonna come to at 4 a.m. with, like, a chisel in your hand, and like
I gotta make an owl!
No, you're gonna, like, come to, like, in the middle of it, and you're like, what have I been doing?
Oh, what happened? What made me subconsciously want to make this owl?
I like that almost immediately you start scaling Autumn Heights, because the next level is Mountain Mania. And weirdly, this is the first level in Tropical Freeze where you can ride Rambi. Rambi does not show up at all in Lost Mangroves, which seems odd considering, it's the first world of the game. Why isn't the animal buddy there? But that's how much they downgraded Rambi's presence in Tropical Freeze. He doesn't even show up until the second world.
Yeah, but I like that he's here. I love seeing my man Rambi.
And it's a great showcase for Rambi in that, like true to form in a retro game, this is a very crumbly, chaotic level because you're scaling the mountain and you're like, there are all these, this is where I think we first see the, owl houses, the giant bird houses that are like four owls and they've got like the wings on the side. Like they're shaped like
look,
owls.
They even got little feet.
Yeah. It's great. Like little feet that like, they almost look like tree branches, but they're just like on the rocks. But yeah, you scale the mountain with Rambi and you're knocking over these like skinnier bird houses with the bells on them. Like
I like that. I like that you can just totally destroy them.
Yeah, and they're enormous bells, and if you look closely, they've got engravings of owls on them too. So it just raises,
oh shit,
further questions, right? But what's interesting about this level is that in the background, eventually, a volcano goes off, and yeah, like there are volcanoes in temperate areas. They're often associated with like volcanic islands in the South Pacific or whatever, but, Mount St. Helens, that blew up. And,
right.
So I like this idea that, Autumn Heights is volcanic. It's a volcanic island. I mean, it probably formed, much in the same way, but it starts, erupting and then some of the retro levels just erupt in a sheer cacophony of chaos. Like it's a slow escalation of stuff crumbling and blowing up, and it just like I've likened them to like Michael Bay movies where there's just so much going on, and it's great. Like I wish sometimes they would chill the hell out, because a big part of Donkey Kong Country for me is just how atmospheric and relaxing they can be, right? And so to have to have this constant barrage of like ludicrous action set pieces can be a bit overwhelming at times when you never get a break from that. That's not to say I don't like it or appreciate it, but sometimes I just want Donkey Kong Country games to be able to breathe too.
Right. I mean, to be fair, I do think Autumn Heights does have a lot of that atmosphere in it. Like, especially in one of the stages coming up. Oh, I just love the atmosphere. We'll get to it.
Sure.
But, even like here, this level starts out with just like a nice, calm little pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
Village.
The pumpkin patch.
You know what what that pumpkin patch reminded me of is, I forget if it's Donkey Konga 2 or 3, but
3.
In one of those, it's in 3. Yeah. It just reminded me of the background of that. That's just a pumpkin patch.
Right.
At the time, it felt just kind of out of place with Donkey Kong. I was like, you made some weird choices, Donkey Konga 3. But I like that you can kind of retroactively tie it into a place like this.
Yeah, Donkey Konga 3 is the one we never got in the West, and so it's kind of, even though obviously people have imported it and there's there's means to play it. It's almost like mythical in some of the legends that have sprung about, like this idea that Barnacle Bear, what was in Donkey Konga 3, was like the biggest urban legend for a while. There's even like,
did it turn out to not be true?
Apparently it's not true. Like
that sucks.
Yeah, it does. Like there's even like Barnacle Bear art in the same almost cel-shaded style of the artwork for the Donkey Konga series. Apparently that was a forgery.
Yeah, why would someone... That's the most baffling thing in the world to me. Someone took the time to say, you know what? Let's do Barnacle Bear in Donkey Konga style.
It's not baffling, it's barnacling.
You're right. I'm sorry. I misspoke. The weirdest thing about it is it's so good. It's so well done. It's like it has to be real, and then it's not.
And so part of me is convinced it must still be real, and just nobody's found them yet.
Somebody will find it sooner or later.
He's hiding behind one of the pumpkins. He's like a skunk in Autumn Heights. He's just out of sight.
Just because you don't see him doesn't mean he's not there.
You know what level I really like in Autumn Heights, though, Dustin?
Which one do you like, Hyle?
I mean, it's all right. It's not my favorite, but I really like it. Horntop Hop.
Wow, way to just kneecap it right away.
Well, you know, I was like...
I mean, it's not my favorite or anything.
I really like Horntop Hop. I really, really love it. It's just, it's like, thinking about it, it's not my favorite, but I also really like it. It's a fun way to incorporate a unique, gameplay mechanic in a singular level, but also tie it into the theming of the level, like the culture, if you want, of Autumn Heights.
Yeah. Totally.
Having these big, horns that the snowmads are blowing, and, like, musical horns, right? And then the Kongs can ride the, I guess, like, sound waves of them, or whatever, blows them upwards. I don't know. But,
right.
What I appreciate about this is, like, deeper into the forest, too, but then you've got, like, these, like, very ornate, like, Central European horns. I don't know. I'm not a musician. I'm not in, you know, playing in your local Oktoberfest, celebrations, but.
Well, not yet.
Not yet. Maybe this will be my calling. Who knows? But, yeah. And you use this as a platform to, you know, either scale, like, pits that were otherwise inaccessible, or to get up higher, you know, to get up into the secrets. I just appreciate when you can, like, already this is the second world, but we've got like more complex mechanics, and it's like, okay, I've got the fundamentals of the game now down now, so now the game is throwing me curveballs with how to progress. And I don't know. It's unique and it's memorable.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not to bring up Bright Savannah in a negative way, but I feel like with Bright Savannah, there's some levels that have some nice, unique themes in them. I mean, they all do, but I think some hit harder than others. But here, this is just such a, like, home run of an idea that it works as a gameplay mechanic, but boy, you're not going to see this, like, anywhere else in the game.
Right.
It's such a unique thing that could only be here, and it just works perfectly.
I think what I appreciate about this is it's very propulsive, right? It's there's this great feeling of getting flung into the air. Whereas Bright Savannah has, like, I think, like, 2 or 3 really strong levels, and then you get the ones with, like, the giant baobab trees dropping.
That's the one I was thinking of. The one that's just kind of like,
and it's just like,
not as super strong.
It doesn't really do much. And I think, like, Bright Savannah is the world that I would say arguably starts out the strongest. And so the come down, it feels more pronounced. Whereas with Autumn Heights, it just keeps building on itself.
Agreed, totally.
Yeah.
And I really love the visuals for this stage. I love those, like, white trees with the red leaves.
Dustin, you're a tree guy. You're a tree guy.
I'm kind of a tree guy.
Are these birch trees?
Maybe. I don't... Here's the thing. You say I'm a tree guy. This is, like, brand new news to me. I couldn't tell you what kind of tree these are. I just like that they look cool.
I thought trees were your thing.
Well, You decided that.
I'm gonna say they're birch trees because they look like birch trees. Google birch trees, and you tell me.
Don't mind if I already did. I'm looking at birch trees. They look like them. They have those white trunks.
Yeah. Have you ever had birch soda?
Are they made from birch trees?
So this is something that my family is from Pennsylvania, right? And, so the only reason I know of, it's called birch beer. It's similar to root beer, but it's made from, like extracts from, I think, birch tree bark. And
right.
This is very common in Pennsylvania, or at least the area of Pennsylvania my family was from. And so like growing up, like my mom was like, "Ooh, birch beer." And, yeah. And then like I moved, I stopped visiting my relatives in Pennsylvania when I became an adult. And it was just like, I've never thought about birch beer again, but I just thought about birch beer looking at these trees.
It just all came rushing back to you.
Here's the thing, Dustin. I hated birch beer. Hated it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I was never a root beer guy, but I would take root beer over birch beer.
Ew.
Anyway. Sorry, apologies if you listen
to this. That was
a
good story.
Apologies if you listen to this and you enjoy the sweet, sticky, goo that comes from the birch tree that, I don't know, people drink as a refreshment. Sawmill Thrill.
Sorry about your sweet sticky goo. Yeah, I love Sawmill Thrill, Hyle. This is my favorite stage, I think, in the whole game.
This is my favorite stage in Autumn Heights, and I think Sawmill Thrill might be the most innovative, inventive, fun, visually stimulating minecart level in the entire Donkey Kong series.
I think I would have to agree with you.
So, Dustin, for those who don't recall, or for those who haven't even played Tropical Freeze yet, what are you doing? What are you doing if you haven't played Tropical Freeze yet? It's been out 9 years. I don't know what to tell you, but describe Sawmill Thrill for the layperson. For those who aren't familiar, because, minecart tracks, I think most people listening to this would be familiar with minecart tracks. What sets Sawmill Thrill apart from the traditional minecart stage?
So the thing about Sawmill Thrill is you go through a sawmill and it's very thrilling.
Oh, okay.
But no, it does start out as kind of a regular minecart stage. Can I just say the opening to this stage where it's just, it's kind of gloomy out, pretty cloudy. I love that so much. That's what I was talking about earlier when I was saying there are some very atmospheric parts of this world. I just love hanging out there, like even before the ride gets going. But then you hop onto a minecart and you get fired from a barrel into a sawmill. And that already, like, are there any other sawmills in any DKU games? I'm sure there are. Maybe there's not. I mean, I can't think of any.
They're sawing down the redwoods in Donkey Kong Country 3, but
that's true.
There are flour mills.
That's not really a mill, though.
There are flour mills in DKC 3, but a sawmill. I think that this is a unique, but plausible environment to encounter in a Donkey Kong game. So
totally. I mean, especially here on Autumn Heights.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it starts out, you're on a regular minecart, but then you switch over to a little log. It becomes a little log flume ride. Isn't that fun?
Yeah, I love how, because, DKC 2, DKC 3, they evolved the minecart formula where they didn't bring back minecarts. They had a roller coaster, and then they had the toboggan, the runaway toboggan, and then Donkey Kong 64 and Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze just say, minecarts. Minecarts are what people know. Let's just have minecarts, But I like how this kind of does something a little bit different in it. It's not just a minecart, it's also, a log flume, just like you would ride at, an amusement park.
Yeah, who needs Splash Mountain?
Yeah. Well, what's cool about this is it does remind me of like the log flume rides from my youth. Like I never went to Disneyland or World, but there are like in all of the theme parks of my childhood, log flumes, and they're always themed around, a sawmill. Just like you're riding like a runaway piece of timber that's been cut down in this sawmill. And so I like that they made that. Oh, it's a literal log flume in a sawmill. And then of course you go back into the minecart at the end of the level, and then that's where it just like the cacophony of the retro level design kicks in. But it's such an inventive way to do it that, like, even though I was like, Mountain Mania, I wish they would just calm down occasionally. I'm glad Sawmill Thrill never calmed down, because this is the most clever, fun, frenetic way I've ever seen a minecart stage executed, where the saw is cutting the wood and it's making the track in front of you, essentially.
Right. Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. I can't sing this level's praises enough. I love how in the middle of it, like the storm is just fully kicked in. It's raining on top of you. Just some really nice visuals. It's
such a wonderful blend of like both styles of Donkey Kong Country. It's atmospheric and, it's not just, here's a beautiful environment. It's a gloomy, rainy, foggy day, right? But you find the beauty even in the more like depressing, just like overcast. Like in real life, you would like walk out on a day like this and be like, ugh, I should have stayed in bed. But here you really can appreciate, oh my god, this is gorgeous. And it's gorgeous precisely because it's not what you normally see in a game like this. And
exactly.
And then you've also got just the gradual ramp up of, just like chaos, of like level design insanity. But it's so clever and it's so frenetic. You're like on your toes. Like this is where you're really just like, your brain is trying to keep up with what's happening, and it's so much fun. It's so engaging.
Yeah. In that last part of the level, I really like how, so when you re-enter the mill, I like that it turns your, the log you're riding in on into a new minecart. And I love how the stage is just, so you see the stage being made in front of you, but now you're seeing it get destroyed in front of you too. You're seeing like parts of the level are flying up for you to ride on top of.
Yeah.
It's great. It's just a lot of fun.
I think this is one of Retro's top levels. I don't know if I would say it's their best, but out of both Donkey Kong Country games they made, this is definitely in the top 3 for sure.
Yeah, it's. I said earlier it might be my favorite in the whole game. I think I would really need to sit down before I can make that claim and really go through every stage. But I feel like it would at least be in my top 3. Yeah.
What I find wild about it is whenever I'm replaying Tropical Freeze, which I've done several times now, especially since it got to the Switch and I can just play it handheld mode, like it's just. I'm gonna like, I want to move my fingers for a bit. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna grab my Switch and I'll play Tropical Freeze. Sure. I always forget about Sawmill Thrill somehow. Whenever I get to Autumn Heights, I'm never thinking, oh, Sawmill Thrill is coming up. But then I get to Sawmill Thrill, I'm like, oh my god, Sawmill Thrill. I don't know if it's because it's so atypical to what, like, the rest of the world is. Like, it fits in perfectly. I'm not saying it's, like, wrong to exist. Like, it feels like a natural part of it, but it also just feels so apart from everything else in a very good way, but I never remember it exists until I'm sitting down to play it, and then I'm delighted, and then I'm like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever.
Well, you know what I think part of it might be? So when I was playing it earlier today, I noticed there's really nothing indicating this stage on the map for the world.
Maybe,
you know, like for a lot of the other levels, you'll have like the hot air balloons. You'll see the big horns on the stage, but they're like you don't see the sawmill. You don't see like the big beaver dam or anything. It's on the map screen. It's just like a patch of grass. There really is nothing for this stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, it always takes me off guard, and then I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I wasn't anticipating this. I can't believe that it always surprises me, but it's always just the best surprise. And yeah, like, I think just visually and from a gameplay perspective, it's one of Retro's absolute masterpieces.
Totally agreed. And I love what you said earlier, equating it to like a theme park ride. It really is. It really does just feel like a nonstop little water roller coaster.
But everything is like thought out as far as like existing within the world, like of Donkey Kong. Like, and then that's something that Retro like carried the torch that Rare first lit, where there is logic to everything that happens in a Donkey Kong Country level. There's no just like obstacle course for the sake of an obstacle course. Like, there is an in-universe reason all this stuff exists. No matter how implausible or flimsy it is, it's still there. That logic is still built in. So I appreciate that.
I think thinking about it, I think that might be one of, if not the biggest reason I love the DKC series so much, like more than like a Mario side scroller. I love that it just feels like a world. It's never just like, oh, we're going to throw you into this level. Who cares? Just do it. Who cares how it fits in? Everything about it is just so well thought out. It's great.
And that's what I like. For as much as we quibble about some of Retro's decisions compared to Rare, you know, it's what we're going to do, but it's why I think fundamentally they understood what made Donkey Kong Country and not just Super Mario Brothers or Sonic the Hedgehog or what have you, is that, the world of Donkey Kong Country is the real world. It's our world, just slightly askew, slightly elevated, slightly heightened, you know, it's a little bit more bombastic and silly, but everything has a purpose and a place, and it feels like a place you could actually inhabit and visit and live in. And whatever like video game mechanics, obstacles come about, it just incidental to the like functioning environment.
Exactly, yeah. Also, it has ducks in it.
It has ducks, and I bring this up every time I talk about Sawmill Thrill, but are they supposed to look like the ducks from Duck Hunt?
I mean, they do look like the ducks from Duck Hunt. I don't know if it's like supposed to be like this, like an homage to Duck Hunt. They might just be like, you know, how ducks look.
Well,
but
right.
But, you know, there's nothing saying it can't be a little reference to Duck Hunt either.
It feels like the kind of reference they would make, considering they would reference all these Nintendo series that aren't Donkey Kong in their Donkey Kong Country games.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Duck Hunt gets to get referenced.
They couldn't even reference.
You can't have like Winky the Frog or On Guard the Swordfish.
You can't even reference Puffed Up correctly.
Come on, you were one F off.
So, from Sawmill Thrill, this is where, like, I think Sawmill Thrill is the dividing line where, even though we were, like, elevating a little bit in Mountain Mania, after Sawmill Thrill, this is really where we start climbing the island. This is where it really starts becoming all mountainous, treacherous terrain, and it becomes kind of this perilous, like, vertical scaling.
Yeah, I really like how this world does have floating platforms, but they're held up by these balloons. There's a logic to them, Hyle.
Hot air balloons. So many hot air balloons. Alpine Incline which it's great. That's like, if you can't use alliteration, at least have them rhyme. And so, Alpine Incline, great name, great level. This is the level, Dustin, I always associate with the Dixie Kong reveal. When we first learned that Dixie Kong was going to be in Tropical Freeze, when Satoru Iwata was doing the voiceover, this is where, like, we were like halfway or like more than halfway, like 2/3 into the trailer, and like it looked like a really like cool update, like Donkey Kong Country Returns, but with better graphics and some new features and new baddies. And, you know, the little petty part in your brain was like, they didn't bring back the Kremlins. Like, I'm excited. I'm really excited, but ... And then all of a sudden you see Alpine Incline, you see the beginning of the level, and gorgeous. It takes you in almost immediately, but then all of a sudden Dixie Kong wafts down behind Donkey Kong, and Iwata says, and Dixie Kong is back as a playable character. And you're just, all of a sudden you don't give a damn about anything else because Dixie Kong is back, which in 2013 was a huge deal. Playable Dixie Kong in Tropical Freeze.
How long had it been since the last Dixie Kong playable appearance before this?
Like, not counting like Mario sports games.
Yeah, not counting like spin-offs or anything.
Or the Donkey Kong Country 3 Game Boy Advance remake. Yeah, it had been Donkey Kong Land 3, 1997. So,
jeez, that's a long time.
And I remember like the debates on the DK Vine forum when Returns came out in 2010 about how we would probably never see Dixie Kong again because it was just Donkey and Diddy. That was going to be the thing, you know. And so there's all this like legitimate debate about, and it wasn't just like panicked Donkey Kong fan fear mongering, like scarred from the buyout era and still not over the perceived slights towards the Rare's creations. And there was like legitimate, I think worthwhile discourse to be had is, you know, does Dixie Kong have a place in the Donkey Kong series going forward? And, this put that to bed, finally. Like, yeah, of course she does. She's a great character and she can do other things that Diddy Kong can't, so why not?
It reinforces her as part of the main group of Kongs. Like, it's DK, Diddy, Dixie, Cranky. Like, it would be weird not to have her now.
And, you know, this is before we knew Cranky Kong was going to be playable in the game, so...
Yeah.
And before we knew that Funky Kong was going to be, initially, you know, NPC in Tropical Freeze, and then of course he had a much more prominent role in the Switch port, but yeah, like now we have like the Tropical Freeze 5 is what we, like the Kongs we never really have to worry about again. They're always going to be kicking around in some form or fashion. And yeah, I just love that Dixie Kong's grand return was with Alpine Incline because it does feel very much like Donkey Kong Country 3 stage in spirit and tone.
Totally.
And so whenever I talk about Autumn Heights and it evoking the Northern Hemisphere, Dixie Kong plays a big part in that, and, you know, making those mental connections. Part of that is the Tropical Freeze reveal trailer. But Alpine Incline itself, this is a really, I really enjoy this stage. Like I said, Autumn Heights never really lets up. it never, like, aside from maybe the, like, hidden stages, the cavern stages, which,
yeah,
they're fun.
Not my favorites.
They're fun, but, like, just, like, the actual progression from, like, the 6 main stages into the boss level, that is just some of the, like, the cleanest, like, it keeps getting better, like, string of levels in the game. I would say that and Juicy Jungle, because
they're so good.
Juicy Jungle's also telling a story here, but like you said, Alpine Incline, what I really like about this is it's all floating platforms, but it's all within the logic of the universe. You don't just have platforms floating because video game mechanics. They're all hot air balloons, or, you know, implausibly, you've got flying penguins that you can bounce off of, in the Snowman army. But, you know, it's just, you're scaling the mountain, you're getting higher and higher thanks to hot air balloons, and you've got that disorienting feeling of, I'm probably too high for safety. Like, this is getting a little dangerous.
Yeah, I really like the part where you have to pop one of the balloons and send it flying upward.
Yep. It's wonderful, and I really like how, you know, it almost becomes eerie the higher up you get, and you're like looking at all the carved owls in the mountainside, and they're like the mountain is all like gnarled looking. It looks almost like something out of a fantasy movie or something. Like it's still keeping within the natural aesthetics of Donkey Kong Country, but it's kind of ethereal. It's kind of otherworldly. You're kind of like...
they don't even 100% look like owls. You just see like a lot of the like holes in the sides that are like owl eyes, but they don't really look like they're fully formed owls. It's very weird.
And don't get me wrong, Dustin. I love me a good owl. I'm not,
especially when it's fully formed.
I'm not like laying down some anti-owl agenda here, but there's something kind of creepy about owls if you think about it. No, like they are nocturnal predators. You sometimes hear them, and maybe this is me being like a hiker, you know, a gentleman of the woods. I will often hear owls, but I'll never see them. I'll hear them hooting.
Oh, that's scary.
And so there's just this something like, I'm being watched by this bird. You know? It can see me, but I can't see it. And what is it thinking about me right now? And so I think incorporating that into the environment, into the mountainside, where these, like, eye holes, like, these owl eyes that are carved into the mountain are just watching you. It really does make you feel like you're on their turf, and something is going to go horribly wrong for you if you keep on this path. And I mean, it's building up to the boss fight, right? Like,
right.
In the best possible way, like, it's telling a story, communicating to you, the player, that you're heading into danger. If you keep progressing, you're going to be going into an owl's lair. Maybe you should turn off the game right now if you know what's good for you.
We're warning you. We're not liable for what could happen to you.
So yeah, Alpine Incline. I love this level. I just love the way it looks. I love. It's just, I can't even find the words, Dustin. I'm so inarticulate right now. I'm just a clumsy oaf when I try to express how much I love this.
It leaves you speechless.
Yeah. And it takes us right into Wing Ding. Wing Ding.
That one's name is maybe not quite as good.
Yeah. You never hear people speaking ill of Wing Ding. Wing Ding is a beloved level. But I have to say, the name, I was like, when you can't have alliteration, at least have a rhyme. Alpine Incline at least has
That's a clever rhyme.
And it has the tenor of alliteration, like Alpine Incline. It's not quite alliteration, but it's close enough because you're using the vowels, right? But Wingding, it just sounds like a really shitty, like, chicken joint.
Welcome to Wingding. What can we get for you?
Like, I'm speaking as a vegan, right? As somebody who hasn't, like, eaten chicken in, something like 22 years. But it seems like the kind of place you would go to and you would always get food poisoning from.
Yeah, basically, get our enormous gorilla-sized Wingding bowl.
Yeah, and it's like it's the cheap place that all of the like college bros go to because they have cheap beer.
I spent my paycheck already. I can't get anything fancy. Let's just go to Wingding.
Let's just go to Wingding and get some beer, and let's get the big bucket of wings. And inevitably,
just eat out of it like a trough.
Everybody's gonna get violent diarrhea that night.
But you know going in, you're like, well, I made the choice. I know what to expect later.
Enough about rectal explosions, though. I want to talk about the level itself. So this is sort of a zipline stage. Well, one of those where you're like going from like vine to vine and you're, how to describe it, Dustin? Help me out here. Be my words.
You're sliding down the vines, avoiding the owls that are on fire.
Or well, some are on fire, some have like the blue fire. Which is are those cold hoots? Are they like, is it
that famous cold fire?
Well, it's like the frosty, I don't know. It's magic Viking fire that's cold. Shut up. Shut up.
No, I'm sold. You just have to tell me it's magic and I'm on board.
So this is the highest parts of the island, and this is where we see the most owl houses, the bird houses with the aforementioned wings and the little talons for the bases. And they're everywhere here, and you're basically in the Hoots domain here. Like you are in owl country now, Donkey Kong. This isn't Donkey Kong country. This is scary.
This ain't Gorilla Town anymore.
Scary nocturnal bird country. I'll peck your eyes out. But it's a very kinetic stage where you're going down the vines, avoiding the owls, knocking over birdhouses. And a lot of people cite this as their favorite track from the game, their favorite David Wise song from the game.
Well, it's interesting because this track is also used for the ending of the game, too.
Oh, yeah.
So it might have been someone else's favorite track, too. Although I think Dave Wise has said that his favorite is... oh, my God, the name is not coming to me. It's one of the ones in World 6. Anyway, he didn't say this one. But, interesting choice to use to just bring back.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to bring up the concept art again, because the concept art actually incorporates what looks to be Viking architecture, in Wingding, more than just the, centralized hoots and owl aesthetics. It's more broad snowmad, sculptures and wood carvings and what have you. So I'm wondering if the intention is there in plain sight in the concept art, where this is a snowmad encampment that Hoots in particular were in charge of. Again, we can't say that the concept art is 100% or 103%, to go back to DKC3, canonical, but I think it can help us inform our impressions of what the canon actually is. What the kernel of intention was before, fully popping in the final game. So, but yeah,
I keep thinking these wooden sculptures look like screaming dinosaurs.
Vikings rode dinosaurs. It could happen. They find them frozen in ice and they thaw them out and they ride them around.
Yeah, it's like the skunks. We just didn't see them.
I also like, one other thing I'll say about Wingding is I like how it seems to take place at sunset. So you've got it's a similar aesthetic to Alpine Incline, but the sun's going down. So you've got the kind of, amber color in the clouds in like the fog. Or I guess it would be clouds if you're so high up on the island that you're just in the clouds. But, it's just this very gorgeous hue that's just highlighting everything, and it really blends in well with the color of the owl houses. So everything is just this like orange and pink aesthetic.
Very pretty. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just another thing, just another way to keep that visual variety just all throughout the world.
This is, I think, as close as retro would get, because of course Rare was very limited in what they could do on the Super Nintendo. So There was a lot of like trickery of like making you think the game was like the environments were more robust than they actually were. And what they would do is they would take a specific archetype, specific like level background, and they would change the color. Like they would reuse it on average, maybe 3 times. Like, it would be used 3 times throughout the game, but they would change the background color. They changed the tint. And so, like, oh, you have a swamp background. Well, here it's going to be green. Here it's going to be brown. Here it's going to be purple. But it would feel different each time. So this kind of feels similar to Alpine Incline, because you still got the scary, like, owl mountain background, but it's, the hue is different.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, the environment, the background is different, like, because they don't have to have just the same repeating scrolling background as the Super Nintendo games had to have. But I think this is as close as you get to, like, the Rare style of tricking your kid brain into thinking, like, they were doing far more impressive background level designs than they were capable of at the time.
Yeah, I gotta say, I do like Wingding, but I feel like it just compared with the other levels in this world, it's maybe like a half a pinch below the other ones.
That's a controversial take.
I like it a lot.
People will fight you with their love for Wingding.
People have fought me with their love for Wingding. But,
just en route to you recording this, you got punched in the back of the skull.
Yeah, I jeez, I guess I deserve it.
Yeah, you were like, there's somebody who was like, hey, you're that guy who thinks Wingding is slightly less than Alpine Incline, and they just let you have it.
Get him, break his legs, don't let him get away.
You were 2 minutes late to recording this because you were rendered unconscious and you had to pull yourself up out of the gutter and get
I was all disheveled. My coat was lopsided. No, like I do like it. Just like if the competition is like Sawmill Thrill, Windmill Hills, it's good, but I just put it a little I don't think it's like just being over the theme by this point. I think it's just I've seen like these birdhouses, I've seen these mountains. It's getting a little I don't want to say been there, done that, because it is different, but you know, I'm seeing stuff that I've seen before and I'm seeing it in a new way. But yeah, and I don't even know why I'm bringing it up, because it is still a great stage.
what I like about it, what I like about the gameplay is that I feel like this is so much more fun than Zipline Shrine, the Zipline style level and Lost Mangroves. This feels like it would be if there was a 2D Batman side scroller. I feel like this is what Batman would do.
Yeah, he'd spin around to ring the bells.
Well, no, but Batman uses grapple hooks and zip lines.
Yeah.
And, it feels very kinetic in a sort of like Batman Arkham series kind of way, where you're just like, you're knocking shit over with your feet, and you're, I don't know, like it's very, very Batman. It's as close as Donkey Kong comes to Batman style gameplay, and I appreciate that because Batman also fights owls.
That's true.
Yeah, Court of Owls. Anyway, so there are three other, but two other like levels with the Autumn Heights theming in Autumn Heights, but they go inside the mountain. They are the two cavern stages that are like the kind of bonus alternate paths you can unlock by finding the Donkey Kong Land style portals. And they are Crumble Cavern and Rodent Ruckus. Rodent Ruckus. What do you think about the name?
That's a good name.
Okay, you do like Rodent Ruckus, okay.
Rodent Ruckus. Anything that uses the word ruckus, I think, is good.
Ruckus is fun. Ruckus, rumpus is also a fun word.
Rumpus. See, now they need to get that in a stage name.
Crumble Cavern is just the...
Wait, isn't there one? Ropey Rumpus?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I forgot. Well, they're set. They win the award for best video game.
Crumble Cavern is... It's a cavern stage. We don't have many of them in Tropical Freeze.
Yeah, I think this is maybe my least favorite level in this world, just because I've seen caves before. This isn't, like, doing that much for me. And when the rest of this world is so unique, getting a stage that's just kind of like a cave, which is, we got a whole world of that in Returns. And not to say it's bad, and it still looks very nice for a cave level. I just feel like I'd rather be out there in the mountains, in the wild grassy plains. But I like Rodent Ruckus. That one has a little more uniqueness in its visuals.
Now they both incorporate giant piles of cheese.
Yeah, I think Rodent Ruckus, maybe that's what gives it the edge here for me, is that cheese kind of plays into it more. You have cheese falling from the ceiling, you have the big wheels of cheeses.
Yeah.
Here, the cheese is just in the background for part of it, which is fine. That's still some environmental storytelling, showing like, oh, here's where those stupid dumb rats keep their cheese. But boy, Rodent Ruckus, you get way more cheese.
This is what makes the Chesters so cheesy.
Wow. You know what? I didn't realize why they were so cheesy before. But now that I'm seeing these gigantic cheeses, now it makes sense.
Now, the thing is, this is like, most of this cheese is tinted yellow.
Right.
Goat cheese is typically white, so I don't think this is the delicious curdled nectar from those goat's teats that we were talking about earlier in the episode. But we haven't seen cows in Autumn Heights. Now, this cheese doesn't have to be necessarily made in Autumn Heights. It could be imported from elsewhere in the Rare Archipelago, but man, the cheesy Chesters sure do hoard it here. Now, Crumble Cavern is just a cave, basically. There's a little bit more. I mean, I don't know how it's just a drippy cave that's crumbly.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was saying. That's just, it's a fine stage. It just doesn't really wow me.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's because Retro just overkilled caverns with returns. So even though they like had less of them in Tropical Freeze, it was like, you could have just not had caves at all in this game. And like aside from that, the one necessary one on Frozen Donkey Island when we're repeating like all the worlds from Returns with, one level at a time in the final world, like then you need a cave for sure. But maybe we didn't really need it here, but okay, whatever. Like, I still like that we went inside the mountain, but Rodent Ruckus, there's a lot more happening visually, where this is like the primary cheese store, but it's also got almost like this temple architecture.
Yeah, it does kind of remind me of just the temple stages we have in this game. Maybe it used to be one.
Well, even though these two levels are so heavily associated with the Cheesy Chesters because they are primary antagonists in these levels, and especially Rodent Ruckus, it's in the name, but the Cheesy Chesters will like swing down on ropes and like get in your way because you're on the rocket barrel in this level, and then of course there's the giant wheel of cheese, but if you look closely, you can also see on the walls these what looks to me to be owl sculptures. So even inside this cheese store, we have this suggestion that like the owls are even like responsible for this I don't know, Great Cheese Temple. I don't know, like
the Great Cheese Temple.
Yeah. So interesting that like if this is like a Snowmad outpost, like that this is how far back it goes. And they're always like, well, if we ever need cheese, we know where we can go. This is our cheese.
We'll let you rats run your little cheese store here.
But, you're gonna give us a cut every now and again when we come to town.
They will cut the cheese for them.
I like that they're all, like, big cheese blocks, too. It's not just, like, little packs of Velveeta.
Big cheese blocks, big cheese wheels?
Yeah.
They go big with their cheese.
And yeah, it's just like the great ludicrous escalation where eventually, of course, there's an enormous cheese wheel that you then have to stay in the wedge of, or else you blow up. Just that kind of like escalating childlike logic that's still rooted within the fundamental reality of the level as is presented. It's what makes, I think, Retro's 2 Donkey Kong Country games so great. It stays to the like philosophy of what Rare laid down, but it just takes it to the absurd extreme that you can take it without breaking it.
Yeah, they're able to make it their own.
Yeah, it's still a cartoon.
Hyle, I have to apologize for that cut the cheese joke I made earlier. We're better than that here.
I ignored it.
I'm sorry.
Dustin, I ignored it not because I didn't hear it or because I tune you out or anything. I ignored it because it was bad.
Yeah, no, I just felt like I felt bad about it.
No, and you should have. But I'm glad you.
Thank you.
I'm glad you recognize it because it shows true growth on your part.
Yeah, this podcast really brings the best out of me.
And the worst, apparently.
Yeah.
There is the standard Snowmad temple, the K temple or Key temple that you can unlock. Which, doesn't really play into Autumn Heights as far as like telling a story about the broader world, but we should make reference to it. Bopopolis, which is
it's a great name.
Talk about fun names. Bopopolis.
Yeah.
Which is like the gimmick of Bopopolis is you're bopping on baddies' heads and you can just keep a successive string of combos going. It just really...
Oh, I'm bopping.
Yeah, it really indulges itself. And I think Bopopolis might be my favorite of the key temples in Tropical Freeze. It's definitely... For me, it's the most memorable.
I don't know what my favorite is. It's the one stage I didn't play when I was going through the world again earlier. Just because, it really doesn't tie into the theme that well, or at all.
Just like
on purpose, it's just one of the temples.
Just like the Tiki Tech tribe themed temples, key temples and returns, like, they're all visually the same. They're all
their own theme.
Yeah, and that's fine, but it doesn't really play into the world that it's located in. So
exactly, but like you said, hell of a name,
and I really think it's a fun gimmick, and like they are the most brutal stages in the retro games, but once you really get the hang of it, it can be fun to just, like, you see yourself gradually getting better. Like, oh no, I died right away. Oh, I got a little bit further. I got a little bit further. I got a little bit further.
You can really get into the flow of jumping on these enemies.
It's the kind of level I would hate streaming, but I really like playing by myself.
Definitely.
Yeah. And finally, we have the boss. The boss of Autumn Heights. And it takes us up to the tippy top. The tip of the mountain, the top of the island. Mountaintop Tussle.
I love the visuals for this. Like, even just from the beginning, you're above the clouds at this point. You're at the point where the mountain peaks above the clouds into the stars.
Right. So Autumn Heights, the map screen, the portrayal of it on the map screen doesn't suggest it's as high as it actually is, because the way it's portrayed on the map screen is all beneath the clouds. It's all it looks kind of squat, right? But
right.
If we're to take the logic of the levels, Autumn Heights goes into the clouds, up into, like, it's one of the most enormous islands in the Rare Archipelago. Like, potentially even taller than Donkey Kong Island, I guess, if it goes this far up.
Oh yeah, I'd say DK Island probably is close to this.
Like, Autumn Heights is probably more narrow. It like maybe has greater elevation, but it's far more narrow, where Donkey Kong Island is far more wider and expansive. Doesn't go quite as high, but this is, they, like, what I do like is the giant owl at the top of the mountain that you see on the map screen is where this boss fight takes place.
Yeah. Sometimes people will say they think the bosses in Tropical Freeze go on a little long. I feel like this is the one that comes to mind for whenever someone says that. Well, I don't know. It really isn't that long, but something about it makes it feel longer than it is.
I think it's because you continue, like, you're at the top. You're in the mountain den of Scowl. Scowl, who is the big Hoots boss.
Scowl the owl.
Scowl, well, yes. I mean, that's... Do I really need to explain it? But yes,
it's just fun to say.
Yeah, it is. What was his, little, like, rhymey title? Cause all the bosses in Tropical Freeze have that sort of, that extra title. Oh, Scowl the Startling. That was it.
That's fun.
Yeah, I never include...
Scowl the Startling.
I never include that. Like, everybody's like, no, their proper name is, Scowl the Startling, and what, Pompey the Presumptuous? What was it?
Yeah, I'm glad. I was thinking of the other Scowl. I'm glad you clarified which Scowl this is.
I don't know, I always think that's just a bit, it's a bit too grandiose. It's like, no, it's Pompey. It's Scowl. I don't need to include their little made up title to make themselves feel better. Yes, Scowl though, great design. I love.
Yeah, totally.
I love how, like, in true Donkey Kong Country fashion, they took, like, a regular, like, standard stock baddie and they magnified it to be the boss. But, obviously, Rare got better at it as time went, but, Very Naughty is a shit boss because they just took They just took the regular naughty beaver and they made it bigger.
It's naughty but big.
Yeah. And then they got better because then you had Crow, who, he was a giant necky, but he had a pirate hat, so different.
Yeah, that makes him a character at least. That's all it takes.
But then, you had like Barbas. She was a giant lurchin, but she looked like she had her own design to her, and
exactly.
And Scal has his own design to him that sets him apart from other hoots. He's more ornate. I like how Scal has like deer antlers or something coming out of his hat, his helmet.
His hat.
Well,
I like it too.
A helmet is a hat that's hard. But it's like
that's true. You are technically right.
He's got like these big antlers, which is such a weird affectation for an owl to have. Like, I need to make myself more intimidating. I'm gonna have like
big spiky antlers,
the ripped out antlers of probably a deer I went to town on. I just swooped down in the middle of the night and I gnawed on its flesh until it was nothing but bone, and then I ripped those antlers out of its skull and I put them in my helmet and I said, "This is what I'll do to you."
I feel like that's not very cool of him to have done.
Which makes me wonder, we talked about indigenous wildlife. We never see any deer, any deer whatsoever, be they reindeer or just your run-of-the-mill deer, your dry deer. We never see them in Autumn Heights, but if Scal, or maybe this is a moose. No, it's not a moose. It's not a moose antler. Definitely not a moose antler. But yeah, if Scal has this in his helmet, maybe there are deer or some sort of antlered beast.
Well, there were deer.
Well, there was at least one, not so much anymore. But yeah.
Yeah, there was one at one point.
Yeah, like maybe they're as unseen as the skunk, but still there. Still present.
Yeah, they don't want to be seen without their horns on.
The Scal fight is, there's so many parts to it. There's, 3 phases to it? Where you start out...
Which, to be fair, all the bosses have 3 phases, but just something about this one felt like you really feel it.
Well, I think it's because, like, the Pompey fight, the Baboon fight, the Fugu fight, the Bashmaster fight, they all take place in the same arena. They all take place in the same environment, and it's not changing. Whereas the Scal fight, all 3 phases take place in a new environment. You start off in the mountain layer of Scal, right? And he's like,
right,
doing his thing where he's like throwing his quills at you. And then from there you go into the next fight on the top of the owl head where, you got the tree growing out of it. And then he's got the other hoots coming in and he's blowing the wind and doing all this stuff. And I'm describing this fight really poorly, I realize, Dustin.
He does this thing with the eggs and then another thing happens.
I'm not a game designer. I can't talk to you in these very technical terms. This big owl, he's got blowing wind and he's got birds wearing egg hats and I don't know, it's the whole thing. But then
sold.
The third phase, you're up in the damn sky. You're just up in the night sky, and you've got the hoots wearing the ahistorical Viking helmets that aren't actual what Vikings wore. They never had horned helmets, but okay. The Snowmads are basically just play acting as Vikings. They're not actually real Vikings. They're just we could be Vikings. Anyway, so you've got them swooping in at you and you've got to evade them. They're dive bombing you and, Scal's directing them. But because those 3 phases of the fight are they each have their own environment. They each have their own thing going on. I think this does feel like one of the longest fights, aside from Lord Frederick, in the game. because it feels like 3 separate boss fights, like, stitched into one.
I think that's definitely part of it. That's a big reason. But I think another part of it is this is not an easy fight. This is a pretty, like, I feel like his attack patterns are pretty, once you get him down, it's fine. But, like, some of them are hard to avoid, especially the one when he, like, zips across the stage and you need to roll into the barrel off stage to blast you back on.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to lose this fight. You might be doing it multiple times. I feel like both of those combined makes it feel maybe longer than it really is.
It's a wild escalation for this to be the second boss battle in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this almost feels like it could be the final boss in a lot of games.
Oh, definitely.
Like this is I would say almost as challenging as, like, the Gangplank Galleon fight in Donkey Kong Country.
I'd say so, but to be fair, that fight's not really all that challenging once you get K. Rool's attacks down. But this is basically the same thing, just memorize what he's going to do, where he's going to be. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I
mean, that's basically every boss fight ever.
I guess that's true.
But yeah, I mean, it just shows how, like, Retro was not holding back. Like, Tropical Freeze basically picks up difficulty-wise pretty quickly. And it's just basically like, oh yeah, you beat Donkey Kong Country Returns? Alright, well, we're just gonna get harder from there. And, I do appreciate, like, how, I think the games are a little bit too hard, maybe, for a lot of people, like, a lot of kids just, like, couldn't progress even in Donkey Kong Country Returns because it just was too much. Like, they weren't expecting it to be that brutal of a challenge, but I like that the Donkey Kong Country games are so hard. I like that they're, like, advanced platforming.
I think it fills a niche. Like, you have all these 2D platformers, but I feel like with Nintendo you can kind of divide them out by, like, so Kirby games are the easiest ones. And then Mario's kind of in the middle. They step it up a little from Kirby, but it's not, it's manageable. And then DK is for the more, hardcore 2D platformers. That, it's great that it has that space it can fill.
Yeah. Just a shame that the demand for the hardcore platformers isn't as much as it is for Kirby.
Yeah. Then maybe we have 20 DK games on the Switch like Kirby does.
Oh. I just want to have what Kirby has. I don't even need to have what Kirby has. I just want, the reliability of Kirby. I don't need as many games as Kirby gets. I just want to know, like...
Right. Yeah, Kirby's never in any danger of having a dry spell.
Like, maybe once every 3 years. That's all I want.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Dustin. As great as
Hello, Hyle.
As great as it's been talking to you about Autumn Heights, we have some calls. Other people wanted to talk to us about Autumn Heights. And the first call is part of a series of 2 calls. So we're gonna play those back to back. And then we're gonna talk about it, and then we're gonna play the other calls and talk about those. And I have one further point I want to make about Autumn Heights, and then that'll be the end of it.
I'd love to hear it.
That'll be the end of it. We'll end it there.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that final point.
Yeah, we need to end this before it gets too close to winter.
Winter Heights.
That's World 6. We're not ready to talk about that. That's just Donkey Kong Island. We can't do a Destination DKU about that, and we have to break it down further. All right, let's play our first 2 calls.
Hyle, Dustin, it's so great to hear from you on this lovely podcast today. I don't know if you did something new with your hair or your face, but you both look just amazing. Just radiating energy. When I saw the topic of this episode, Hyle, I gotta admit, my eyes bugged out of my skull as if I was one of the Kongs in this game who saw Scowl smashing one of their bananas, but in a good way. I was not appalled. I was delighted because I love Retro's games. So we're talking about one of, if not the best world in one of their games, and all their games really, Autumn Heights. I love your guys' juicy jungle episode. I'm sure you both are devastated that Professor Chops is not as prevalent in this world, but I'm really happy that you guys are tackling this one. I didn't think you were going to tackle it so soon after Juicy Jungle, but I'm just going to lay it on the line. I think this is probably the best world in any Donkey Kong game, aside from maybe Frozen Donkey Kong Island. Yeah, I don't know. I think every level in Autumn Heights is such a banger. I mean, I don't have time to go through all of them, but like, can we just talk about how like just gorgeous and varied every level looks? Can we talk about how even though, yeah, sadly Retro didn't use the animal bunnies as much, Ramby's level, Mountain Mania, is so great, and you really feel the power of Ramby. It's just a great set piece. Windmill Hills' theme, I mean, David Wise making a good song. I mean, the grass is green, water is wet. Like it's obvious, but man, it's so good. And the Sawmill Thrill and the Rodent Ruckus, the Rocket Barrel, and minecart levels, like those are so good. And even the temple levels, while unfortunately it looks similar, Bothopolis is I love that stage. I love the rhythm of it. I love the DKU and Swing remix that David Wise did. And even the boss, Scowl, I think it's probably one of the best bosses in the game. I really love they throw its minions at it. I like how you progressively go higher up. I love how you can see Scowl's base in the background of like the stages as you get closer. Just an overall great stage. I mean, I love it. It's very awesome. And I think, yeah, not many games have like Swiss-inspired areas like this. I think this is the Swiss landscape. That call before was Traveler of the Stars, and that is me now. I just got so excited about talking about Autumn Heights, not Bright Savannah, and how gorgeous you two are. I didn't say that. Quick question. If any world from Tropical Freeze was to make a reappearance, which one would you choose, and why is it probably Autumn Heights? Okay, goodbye.
Well, thank you for the calls, as always, Traveler of the Stars. One thing we didn't talk about with the Scowl fight, Dustin, is the beginning of it where, Scowl makes his appearance and he, does his ritualistic sacrifice of a banana.
and just the absolute, horror on the Kong's faces.
Right, There's no seeming point to it other than Scowl just being a petty little bitch. And the Kongs are just like, this is a war crime you've just committed. You've just smashed one banana. A singular, it's so stupid.
Who do you think you are?
It's so just like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, but I love it because it knows it's so stupid.
Totally. I think my favorite is when Funky does it. Just his face, he's just like, what did you do that for, man?
Yeah, he almost does the, what? Did I just see what I thought I saw?
He's in utter disbelief. Wow, high praise. One of the best worlds in... Did he say it was his favorite stage in any Donkey Kong game? Or favorite world,
Like right up there with Frozen Donkey Kong Island, I believe. But, I mean, I can...
I don't know if I can say it's my number one favorite, but I would definitely put it in my top.
Nostalgia is a hell of a thing, and it's hard for me to really compare the later two Donkey Kong Country games with the original trilogy, just because the original trilogy has meant so much to me for so much longer of my life.
Right.
It's not that I don't love Retro's games, I do, but they can never really compare with the feelings that the original DKC trilogy evokes. So,
right, yeah.
You know, I can see where Traveler's Stars is coming from, though, and you know, they ask if we like what world would we want to see back? Basically, like, would you like to see Autumn Heights make a return appearance? And my thing is, I don't know how you would do it. I guess you could say, well, here's the backside of the island that we never saw, but I feel like these islands being sort of like self-contained, it's kind of like Donkey Kong Island is large enough that you could, you know, plausibly, as we've seen in the past, like re-explore terrain and get something new out of it. But if we're to return to this aesthetic, I would just say, let's go back to the Northern Hemisphere. Like, let's see, like, we've never seen the edges of the Northern Hemisphere. We don't know how far that extends. We could just keep mining the Northern Hemisphere and get the same vibes from Autumn Heights. That's my personal take. I don't know. Yeah,
like, as much as I adore Autumn Heights, it is my favorite world in the whole game. But, like, the Northern Hemisphere is like a whole game.
Yeah.
That's a whole game with so many different level archetypes games. You could
two
mess
whole
with.
Games, Dustin. Don't forget about Donkey Kong Land 3.
Perish the thought, Hyle. One thing I will say, though, when I was playing this earlier today, I did have the thought of, like, I wish this was not stuck on a 2D plane. I love 2D side-scrollers, but I think it was Horntop Hop, just with all those cool birch trees. I was like, I want to be able to just run around in this world in a 3D space. I would love to just jump, run around, and explore all of this. So if they brought this world back in a 3D Donkey Kong game, I would be very overjoyed. But would it be my number one pick, though? Because I feel like if you're expanding Tropical Freeze Worlds into a 3D Donkey Kong game, I could see it being a lot of fun bringing back Juicy Jungle, too. You might even have more to work with in a 3D space for that one. I think I might need to give it to Juicy Jungle over Autumn Heights. But it would be very close.
I have to say, I'm very excited about the possibility of having like a more temperate Donkey Kong environment in a 3D plane. It's not something like Donkey Kong 64 had Fungi Forest, with kind of, but not really, like something that's more evocative of Autumn Heights or the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah,
Tamarin. Looking at that game, that had a lot of the similar vibes I would like to see. Maybe not like massacring ants, but, you know, similar vibes that I would want to see in a 3D Donkey Kong game at some point. I think the next 3D Donkey Kong game we're gonna get, if it is the next Donkey Kong game or not, will primarily be jungles, but hopefully we can broaden our horizons a little bit, so.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the calls, plural, Traveler of the Stars.
Thank you so much.
Let's go ahead and play our next one.
Hey, it's El Sidley on the forums. Just quick call here when I saw you doing Autumn Heights. I just wanted to say, as someone who grew up playing the original trilogy of the games, my favorite levels were always the minecart ones or the roller coaster / toboggan ones when you get to later games. I don't know what it was. It's just, as a kid, it really spoke to me. I love playing them over and over again. And so Sawmill Thrill in Autumn Heights, I think, is the platonic form of the minecart stage. It's so creative. It's so varied in all the different ways it goes. For me, it really reaches its zenith in that section where you're having to jump on platforms that are coming up from behind you. We hadn't really seen anything like that before, and I thought the way it was implemented was done really well. And so Sawmill Thrill in Autumn Heights, for me, is probably my favorite level across all of the Donkey Kong games. So, love it. Just wanted to give a shout out to that specific level.
You know what I love about this episode, almost as much as you identifying the birch trees with such passion just now. I knew you were a tree identifying maniac, Dustin. You just didn't know it was inside
You got me.
Is when we get a call like this that just completely validates what we were talking about earlier, and it makes us feel like we're plugged into the zeitgeist far more than we actually ever are. Yep.
Yeah, wow. I love all this praise this world's been getting from these two callers.
Well, but specifically Sawmill Thrill, like we wouldn't shut up about that one, and it's just nice that yes,
adore Sawmill.
Someone else out there is like, I also think Sawmill Thrill is the ideal of the minecart stages. I think it is. Like, it wasn't even the last minecart stage in Tropical Freeze. And I think there's more fun to be had with it, but I do think Sawmill Thrill, it's going to be a hard one to beat going forward.
Totally. I totally agree. This episode's really got me thinking of, like, what would my favorite Donkey Kong, like, levels be? I never thought about, like, what my favorites in the whole series and how I would rank them would be. I think I would put Sawmill Thrill probably at least in my top 5.
Yeah, for sure. For me, I think Bramble Scramble is still my all-time favorite, but
love Bramble Scramble.
Yeah, I think Sawmill Thrill would be in my top 3. Yeah.
Wow. I love that so much for you, Hyle.
I'm glad you can be happy for me, Dustin. It's not weird at all.
Well, I'd be a real dick if I wasn't happy.
Well, you know what?
For you.
You know, there's been lots of great dicks in history. Dick Clark.
Oh, that's true. Dick Van Dyke.
Dick Van Dyke. Fantastic dick. Let's take the next call.
Hey, this is Scarberg. I'm new to the community, and this is my first time calling, but I was really excited to see the topic posted. Autumn Heights, in my eyes, it's second only to Juicy Jungle. My favorite level in any DK game is probably Wing Ding. I just love the cool, like bird palaces and stuff, and just the music just makes me think of bird music. I'm a younger DK fan, and I loved Returns, but then just once I got my hands on Tropical Freeze, it just cemented the franchise in my heart. I think it's the most beautiful just platformer to date, just visually, and it's probably why I'm an environmental artist now. And that kind of brings me out to the main point I was going to bring up, which is that the logging operation in Sawmill Thrill, I think it's the Snowman's doing because the red, the wooden walls they have there, the planks are organized in the same V-shaped pattern as the walls in High Tide Ride, Sea Stack Attack, and a little bit in Twilight Terror. And I think it kind of adds to the idea that the Snowmads are a terrible colonizing force, with DK Island just being one of many places they've subjugated. But the owls seem to be native to Autumn Heights, and yet they're allied with the Snowmads. Because I think there's some interesting maybe history there, with the owls as a third-party faction to the Snowmads. And maybe they're okay with the logging that the Snowmads do, as long as they don't disturb their temple at the mountain peak, which is probably me just looking too far into it. But yeah, thanks for hearing my call.
Thank you for the call. Always great to hear from a new caller, somebody new to the community at that. And Dustin, I hadn't considered this. You know how much I try to consider all aspects of the...
You do a lot of considering.
I do. The lore implied or just completely fabricated in my own fevered imagination of Donkey Kong. And it makes sense because, logging... Now, granted, the Kongs, the bears, like the forces of good that we see in the Donkey Kong Country series, they all use wood. And wood comes from trees. So they do have to cut down some trees every now and again. They might not like it, but they do it. They live in tree houses. They live in cabins. That requires wood. But, I hadn't considered that maybe the Snowmads are behind the logging operations in Autumn Heights. I thought maybe this was just a benign sawmill, because there's a resplendent amount of trees in Autumn Heights, and you can spare some cause you gotta make, you gotta get the wood from somewhere, and gotta get paper from somewhere. They use paper. Diddy writes that note to Timber in Diddy Kong Racing. But this is the kind of stuff I like, comparing like the wood spikes to the other wood spikes you see, in like the Snowmat encampments in places like, Bright Savannah. And it's just like, yeah, you know what? That actually makes sense that the Snowmats might be responsible for this logging operation, especially if the Hoots have a bigger prominence on Autumn Heights. Maybe they're the ones helping facilitate this. And I mean, I like that train of thought. That's the kind of stuff I love, where, you know, fans looking into this kind of stuff and even seeing details that I don't do. And this is what I do all day long, Dustin. This is all I do, is consider the DKU.
Good job considering. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that it doesn't have to just straight up tell you. I like that there's enough in the environment that you can just come to that conclusion on your own.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the call, and you've completely changed the way I look at Sawmill Thorough, and now I hate it. So, good job. You completely
now it's the worst
You
level.
completely reverse my opinion. It's no better than a Kremlin factory. Thanks a lot. All right, let's take our next call.
Hyle, I woke up as Traveler of the Stars, calling again because I woke up in a cold sweat. I just needed to call you one more time. I wanted to hopefully be the last caller. Schnauzel, right? I'm sure you've talked about that groovy guy. So that comes from some German words, right? German, and with the Swiss imagery, right? European. I need to ask, Hyle, when is the character spotlight, character witness for Luigi Lederhosen, or, as you call it famously, Luigi with the big sausage? I'm tired of you running. We're all tired of you running. Rare will not make another game. Nintendo will not make another Donkey Kong game unless you give the people what they want. You need to do this, Hyle. Let me ask you a question. What if, Hyle, Diddy Kong got in the Mario Kart 8 DLC, but then also, it was no funky, it was Luigi with the big sausage? Would you clap? And also, what would you do if your wife came up to you, said, Hyle, my favorite character is Luigi with the big sausage, can you make a character witness? I mean, you couldn't say no to that, right? Right? I mean, come on, you gotta give the people what they want. We all want more Luigi with the big sausage coverage. You're the man of the people, so get on that. Okay, love you, goodbye.
So, Dustin, I appreciate the Traveler of the Stars called in twice already in this episode, and then was like, wait, I didn't bring up Luigi with the big sausage, which fits the Oktoberfest themes of Autumn Heights. Gotta make a call about Luigi with the big sausage.
I won't rest until I make this call to Hyle.
Here's the thing about your logic, Traveler Stars. I don't think Luigi with the big sausage would necessitate a character witness, because Luigi with the big sausage is just Luigi with the big sausage. Like he's not a separate character unto himself. He's just Luigi wearing lederhosen, holding a big sausage. And I don't even know if a character witness for a Mario character would be under the Kongversation's purview, right? Like, cameo game characters that still have, you know, the crossover with Donkey Kong cast, or even Banjo and Kazooie, or what have you. Like they're DKU adjacent. They're not DKU. They're not native born DKU. And so I feel like if
right.
Here on the Kongversation, we would truly be out of ideas if we started doing character witnesses for Mario characters. I would feel squicky about it. Ew. I would feel like I would need to take,
ew, dirty.
I would need to take baths constantly just to cleanse myself after. 'Cause that would be me selling out. That's what that would be. Even, like wrapping it up in something more palatable to my own senses and sensibilities, like having an enormous it would still be too far afield from my mission statement that I don't think I could do a character with, like, maybe we'll do an episode about, like, the top 5 sausages in the DKU. And then, you know, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh man, I'm hoping for the big sausage from Cloud Cuckoo Land.
Oh God. Cloud Cuckoo Land is the worst. I love Banjo-Tooie. Cloud Cuckoo Land sucks my toes.
Yeah. Banjo-Tooie is my favorite game on the planet, and I can't defend Cloud Cuckoo Land.
Here's the thing. I think Cloud Cuckoo Land has some interesting bits, and I like Cloud Cuckoo Land is the Donkey Kong 64 of Banjo-Tooie in that I like elements of Cloud Cuckoo Land, and I enjoy thinking about it. But when I sit down to play it, I'm not having a good time.
It's just that big cave. I hate how annoying the cave is. I'm very anti-cave this episode, I feel like.
You fucking hate cave. Like, Nick Cave, you're like, get that shit out of here. I don't want any of his
I will have
music.
none of this.
No Nick Cave albums from me. I think, Dustin, that Cloud Cuckoo Land actually ties into our discussion about snowmats. You know why?
Ooh.
Have you ever considered...
How come? Why for?
Have you ever considered that Cloud Cuckoo Land is a snowmad encampment?
I can't say that I have, Hyle.
Okay.
I can't say I've ever had that.
We know
thought.
Secret Seclusion is a magical snowmad encampment in the clouds, right? Secret Seclusion is plausibly the same location as Fungi Forest and Chimpanzee Clouds from Donkey Kong Land. They're all the same place, is what I'm saying. Secret Seclusion is what the Snowmats call it. Chimpanzee Clouds is what the Kongs call it. Fungi Forest is the location within Chimpanzee Clouds. Okay. What's my point? Well, it's a floating island and floating environment within the clouds above Donkey Kong Island. What's a floating environment in the clouds above the Isle Hags? It's Cloud Cuckoo Land. So, is it possible? Is it probable that the Snowmads, while putting all of these little secret hideaways in the Rare Archipelago, also put one above the Isle o' Hags? I think, obviously that wasn't the intention because Retro came up with the Snowmads and Rare made Banjo-Tooie, and what the fuck am I talking about? But when we look at the logic of the DKU, as we were talking about earlier, about bears in the Northern Hemisphere in relation to Autumn Heights, I think it's the only logical explanation for Cloud Cuckoo Land existing. And of course, there's other connections with Cloud Cuckoo Land and the broader DKU, like Canary Mary, obviously, is part of the same bird cosplaying weirdo society that the Chopper Bird from Donkey Kong Jungle Beat is part of. And maybe they're even lovers. I like to imagine that in my head on cold nights come winter. But
daily.
But that being said, could there be other snowmad encampments in the clouds above Willow Woods, above Pinata Island? Maybe.
I'm gonna say yes.
Maybe.
Is that true?
Maybe.
Is that right?
I like to think it's possible and that maybe one day we will find out for certain. But I bring this up also because Autumn Heights clearly has some more snowmad prominence than the other islands in Tropical Freeze, in that they have some roots there, for as much as any nomadic people can have roots. So
yeah, I kind of wish we got to see like Walrus World or something.
That's what I wish the Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet sequel would have been.
I know, it's stuck with me for the last 20 years.
Let's just retcon all the bosses of Diddy Kong Racing to be weirdo space aliens.
They all have their own planet.
You do it for one, you gotta do it for all of them.
Sorry, we don't make the rules.
So, in conclusion, Luigi with the big sausage, no character witness for that. Thank you for the call, Traveler of the Starts. You weren't the last caller, though. No. Somebody...
Ooh.
No. Somebody actually called in after you. So, sorry to disappoint you.
Better luck next time.
Let's go ahead and take our final call.
What is up, Hyle and Dustin? Happy autumn is my favorite time of year, and I'm very excited for this episode. I love everything about autumn, fall, the pumpkin stuff, any pumpkins that you can imagine. I love the cooler temperatures, like caramel apples. Love Halloween. Halloween's my favorite holiday. So yeah, I'm just I love this world and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. And whenever I fire the game up, I like just playing a few levels here and there. And two of the ones I always hit are Alpine Incline and Sawmill Thrill. Love them both. Can you tell I'm excited that it's fall? Autumn. Happy autumn, both of you. Have a great episode. Looking forward to it. Take care. Oh, and this is Blitzrunner 29. Bye.
Thank you for the call. Blitzrunner 29, was it?
That's what it sounded like.
I'm terrible with names, Dustin, but I'm even more terrible when they're made up names that people aren't actually named in real life. So when I'm not like you, I can wrap my head around your name, Dustin, because I've heard it before.
Right. It's like Justin with a D.
It's similar to the acorn person, Dusty, from Conker's Pocket Tales. So it's easy to remember.
See, it's that easy.
It's easy to remember.
Yeah, you just equate it with something meaningful in your life, like Dusty the Acorn.
People love autumn. I'm finding that out too. Like, it's a lot of people's favorite season, and some people just like it for the pumpkin spice lattes. Did you know? I don't care about pumpkin spice lattes because I don't like pumpkin as a beverage. But did you know pumpkin spice lattes? It's impossible to get them vegan in the United States because Starbucks pumpkin spice, like powder blend, whatever, it's made with dairy in the United States. It's vegan in Europe, apparently, and other countries, other continents even. But here in the United States, it's made with dairy exclusively. So you cannot,
that's crazy.
You cannot get a vegan pumpkin spice latte with another milk because the milk is in the formula itself.
I had no idea about that. My whole world's been turned upside down.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just like, yeah, I can't appreciate fall on the same level as some of these other people can because I can't drink a pumpkin spice latte at least once. So
I get that, Hyle. I'm sorry. I think if I had to pick a favorite season, I think it would be autumn. I like it. I like the feeling. So I live in Idaho where it's either too hot or too cold. And, I really appreciate just I feel it doesn't feel like it's autumn for long here because it feels like you'll have summer will go on too long and then you'll maybe have like a couple weeks of nice temperature before it gets too cold. But I enjoy the time I have when it's just like a nice, simple little like high 60s, low 70s weather. I like the colors. I like the smells. Yeah. I walk by the Albertsons near my house. I just take a big, deep, dank whiff, and I'm like, oh yeah, autumn is here.
Nothing more that I like than a nice, dank whiff of fall. So that's the question, Dustin. That's what I wanted to bring up as we wrap up this episode. Autumn Heights. It's in the name. But does that mean it's always autumn in Autumn Heights? Is it a perpetual Neverland of fall? Or does it actually experience the other 3 seasons as well? And we just happen to visit it in autumn in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze.
I kind of like the idea of the former, like just you come to this island and it's just like always a nice perfect cool temperature. You kind of have like a small chill. It's not like super cold, but it's maybe hoodie weather. Yeah, the leaves are just always a nice orangey red.
So wait, but like the leaves can't just be in perpetual decay without like ever.
Maybe they are.
Well, but they're falling. We see them falling off. So like eventually the trees have got to run out, right? Right.
That answer wasn't in the game.
Oh. So, okay. Dustin, you can live your fantasy if you would like, but my take is...
Thank you.
Autumn Heights, while it might always, have cooler weather than other areas of the Rare Archipelago, like it might always be a little bit cooler. I still think it snows there. I still think they get winter. I still think, spring renews the leaves and, it's never this perpetual autumn in Autumn Heights, but... when we visited in Tropical Freeze. So Tropical Freeze came out February 2014. And I think a lot of people would be like, well, the game takes place in February then. So Autumn Heights is always autumn. And to that, I would say, I believe you're incorrect, people out there saying that. Stop it. Shut your mouth.
Oh.
Because... fallen down the memory hole a little bit, but Tropical Freeze was originally scheduled to come out in November of 2013. So, autumn, in the Northern Hemisphere. But, we actually have, unlike other Donkey Kong Country games, and most DKU games, we have the beginning of Tropical Freeze tied to a specific event. And that event is Donkey Kong's birthday. And I've talked about this before. I've talked about it so many places on DK Vine, but it's a crucial component of discussing Autumn Heights. Because Autumn Heights takes place in autumn because Donkey Kong's birthday takes place in autumn. And we have some canonical evidence for that. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready, Freddy.
Okay. I believe, crunching all of the data that I've had over the years in DKU, that October 21st is Donkey Kong's birthday. So this is years of research, Dustin. I've pinpointed October 21st to be Donkey Kong's birthday. Why? Well, if we're to look at Tropical Freeze as beginning on Donkey Kong's birthday, then it starts on October 21st.
Uh-huh.
I believe that we can pinpoint it to October 21st, 2013, because I mentioned Zipline Shrine and I was kind of negative compared to Wingding, right? But Zipline Shrine in Lost Mangroves is the first time we have a night level in Tropical Freeze. And it takes place in the middle of a meteor shower. Now, I don't know how much you know about meteor showers, Dustin. I don't know if you know as much about meteor showers as you know about trees. But the annual Orionid meteor shower reaches its peak in late October. And in 2013, the zenith, the peak of the Orionid meteor shower was between October 21st and October 22nd. The first nightfall in Tropical Freeze would have been the peak of the Orionid meteor shower in late October. Why have I pinpointed it to October 21st specifically for Donkey Kong's birthday? The first time we saw Donkey Kong's birthday canonically portrayed in a game was in Mario Party 4. They celebrated Donkey Kong's birthday in there. They got him all these cute little gifts like a Donkey Kong nesting doll and a little DK barrel and like a banana tree and really shitty gifts, but it's from Mario and Friends and they don't really know him that well. But the release date for Mario Party 4? October 21st.
Oh my god.
So yeah, Autumn Heights takes place in the autumn, but you know, maybe it's always autumn. Just that I don't know.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.